Mahabharata, Book 5, Section 81. Sadeva said, What hath been said by the king is, indeed, eternal virtue, but thou, O chastiser of foes, shouldst act in such a way that war may certainly happen. Even if the Kauravas expressed their desire for peace with the Pandavas, still, O thou of Dasara's race, provoke thou a war with them. Having seen, O Krishna, the princess of Panchala brought in that plight into the midst of the assembly, how can my wrath be appeased without the slaughter of Suryodhana? If, O Krishna, Bhima and Arjuna and King Yudhishthira the just are disposed to be virtuous, abandoning virtue, I desire an encounter with Duryodhana in battle. Satyaki said, The high-souled Sadeva, O thou of mighty arms, hath spoken the truth. The rage I feel towards Duryodhana can be appeased only by his death. Dost thou not remember the rage thou too hadst felt upon beholding in the woods the distressed Pandavas clad in rags and deerskins? Therefore, O foremost of men, all the warriors assembled here unanimously subscribed to what the heroic son of Madri, fierce in battle, hath said. Vyasa continued, At these words of the high-souled Duryodhana, a leonine roar was set up by all the warriors assembled there. And all the heroes, highly applauding those words of Satyaki, praised him, saying, Excellent! Excellent! And anxious to fight, they all began to express their joy. Mahabharata, Book 5, Section 82. Vyasa said, Hearing the peaceful words of the king that were fraught with both virtue and profit, King Draupada's daughter Krishna, of long black tresses, afflicted with great grief, applauding Sadeva and that mighty car warrior Satyaki, addressed Madhava seated by his side. And beholding Bhimasena declare for peace, that intelligent lady, overwhelmed with woe and with eyes bathed in tears, said, O slayer of Madhu, it is known to thee, O thou of mighty arms, by what deceitful means, O righteous one, the son of Dhritarashtra with his counselors robbed the Pandavas, O Janardana, of their happiness. Thou knowest also, O thou of Dasara's race, what message was privately delivered to Sanjaya by the king. Thou hast also heard all that was said unto Sanjaya. O thou of great effulgence, these words were even these, Let only 5 villages be granted to us, viz., Avasthala, and Vrkasthala, and Makandi, and Varanavada, and for the 5th, any other, O thou of mighty arms, O Kesva, even this was the message that was to have been delivered to Duryodhana and his counselors. But, O Krishna, O thou of Dasara's race, hearing those words of Yudhishthira, endued with modesty and anxious for peace, Suryodhana hath not acted according to them. If, O Krishna, Suryodhana desireth to make peace without surrendering the kingdom, there is no necessity of going thither for making such a peace. The Pandavas with the Srinjayas, O thou of mighty arms, are quite able to withstand the fierce Dhritarashtra host inflamed with rage. When they are no longer amenable to this arts of conciliation, it is not proper, O slayer of Madhu, that thou shouldst show them mercy. Those enemies, O Krishna, with whom peace cannot be established by either conciliation or presents, should be treated with severity by one desirous of saving his life. Therefore, O mighty-armed Achyuta, heavy should be the punishment that deserves to be speedily inflicted upon them by thyself aided by the Pandavas and the Srinjayas. Indeed, even this would become the son of Pritha, and add to thy glory, and if accomplished, will, O Krishna, be a source of great happiness to the whole Kshatriya race. He that is covetous, whether belonging to the Kshatriya or any other order, save of course a Brahmana, even if most sinful, ought surely to be slain by a Kshatriya, who is true to the duties of his own order. The exception in the case of a Brahmana, O sire, is due to a Brahmana's being the preceptor of all the other orders, as also the first sharer of everything. Persons conversant with the scriptures declare, O Janardana, that sin is incurred in slaying one that deserveth not to be slain. So there is equal sin in not slaying one that deserveth to be slain. Act thou, therefore, O Krishna, in such a way with the forces of the Pandavas and the Srinjayas, that sin may not touch thee. From excess of confidence in thee, O Janardana, I will repeat what hath been said again and again. Whatever woman, O Kesava, is there on earth like me? I am the daughter of King Drupada, risen from the sacrificial altar. I am the sister of Drishtadyumna, thy dear friend, O Krishna. I have by marriage become a lady of Ajamata's race, the daughter-in-law of the illustrious Pandu. I am the queen of Pandu's sons, who resemble 5 Indras in splendor. I have, by these 5 heroes, 5 sons that are all mighty car warriors, and that are morally bound to thee, O Krishna, as Abhimanyu himself. Being such, O Krishna, I was seized by the hair, dragged into the assembly, and insulted in the very sight of the sons of Pandu and in thy lifetime. O Kesava, the sons of Pandu, the Panchalas, and the Vrishnis being all alive, exposed to the gaze of the assembly, I was treated as a slave by those sinful wretches. And when the Pandavas beholding it all sat silent without giving way to wrath, in my heart I called upon thee, O Govinda, saying, Save me, O save me. Then the illustrious King Dhritarashtra, my father-in-law, said unto me, Ask thou any boon, O princess of Panchala. Thou deservest boons and even honor at my hands. Thus addressed I said, Let the Pandavas be free men with their cars and weapons. Upon this the Pandavas, O Kesava, were freed, but only to be exiled into the woods. O Janardana, thou knowest all these sorrows of mine. Rescue me, O lotus-eyed one, with my husbands, kinsmen, and relatives, from that grief. Morally, O Krishna, I am the daughter-in-law of both Bhishma and Dhritarashtra. Though such, I was yet forcibly made a slave. Fie to Partha's bowmanship, O, fie to Bhimasina's might, since Duryodhana, O Krishna, liveth for even a moment. If I deserve any favor at thy hands, if thou hast any compassion for me, let thy wrath, O Krishna, be directed towards the sons of Dhritarashtra. Vaisampayana continued, having said this, the beautiful Krishna of eyes that were black in hue and large like lotus leaves, bathed in tears, and walking like a cow-elephant, approached the lotus-eyed Krishna, and taking with her left hand her own beautiful tresses of curly ends, deep blue in hue and scented with every perfume, endued with every auspicious mark, and though gathered into a braid, yet soft and glossy like a mighty snake, spake these words, Lotus-eyed one that art anxious for peace with the enemy, thou shouldst, in all thy acts, call to thy mind these tresses of mine seized by Dasasana's rude hands. If Bhima and Arjuna, O Krishna, have become so low as to long for peace, my aged father then with his warlike sons will avenge for me in battle. My 5 sons also that are endued with great energy, with Abhimanyu, O slayer of Madhu, at their head, will fight with the Kauravas. What peace can this heart of mine know unless I behold Dasasana's dark arm severed from his trunk and pulverized to atoms? 13 long years have I passed in expectation of better times, hiding in my heart my wrath like a smoldering fire. And now pierced by Bhima's wordy darts that heart cf mine is about to break, for the mighty-armed Bhima now casteth his eye on morality. Uttering these words with voice choked in tears, the large-eyed Krishna began to weep aloud, with convulsive sobs, and tears gushed down her cheeks. And that lady, with hips full and round, began to drench her close and deep bosom by the tears she shed, which were hot as liquid fire. The mighty-armed Kesava then spoke, comforting her in these words, Soon wilt thou, O Krishna, behold the ladies of Bharata's race weep as thou dost. Even they, O timid one, will weep like thee, their kinsmen and friends being slain. They with whom, O lady, thou art angry, have their kinsmen and warriors already slain. with Bhima and Arjuna and the twins, at Yudhishthira's command, and agreeably to fate, and what hath been ordained by the ordainer, I will accomplish all this. Their hour having arrived, the sons of Dhritarashtra, if they do not listen to my words, will surely lie down on the earth turned as morsels of dogs and jackals. The mountains of Himavat might shift their site, the earth herself might split into 100 fragments, the firmament itself with its myriads of stars might fall down, still my words can never be futile. Stop thy tears, I swear to thee, O Krishna, soon wilt thou see thy husbands, with their enemies slain, and with prosperity crowning them. Mahabharata, Book 5, Section 83. Arjuna said, Thou art now, O Kesava, the best friend of all the Kurus. Related with both the parties, thou art the dear friend of both. It behoveth thee to bring about peace between the Pandavas and the sons of Dhritarashtra. Thou, O Kesava, art competent, and, therefore, it behoveth thee to bring about a reconciliation. O lotus-eyed one, proceeding hence for peace, O slayer of foes, say unto our ever-wrathful brother Suryodhana, what, indeed, should be said, if the foolish Duryodhana doth not accept thy auspicious and beneficial counsels fraught with virtue and profit, he will surely then be the victim of his fate. The Holy One said, Yes, I will go to King Dhritarashtra, desirous of accomplishing what is consistent with righteousness, what may be beneficial to us, and what also is for the good of the Kurus. Vaisampayana continued, The night having passed away, a bright sun arose in the east. The hour called Mitra set in, and the rays of the sun were still mild. The month was Kaumuda Kartika, under the constellation Revti. It was the season of dew, autumn having departed. The earth was covered with abundant crops all around. It was at such a time that Janardana, the foremost of mighty persons, in enjoyment of excellent health, having heard the auspicious, sacred-sounding and sweet words of gratified Brahmanas, like Vasva himself hearing the adorations of the celestial rishis, and having also gone through the customary acts and rites of the morning, purified himself by a bath, and decked his person with unguents and ornaments, worshipped both the sun and fire. And having touched the tail of a bull and reverently bowed to the Brahmanas, walked round the sacred fire, and cast his eyes on the usual auspicious articles placed in view, Janardana recollected Yudhishthira's word and addressed Seni's grandson Satyaki, seated near, saying, Let my car be made ready, and let my conch and discus, along with my mace, and quivers and darts and all kinds of weapons, offensive and defensive, be placed on it, for Duryodhana and Karna and Suvala's son are all of wicked souls, and foes, however contemptible, should never be disregarded by even a powerful person. Understanding the wishes of Kesava, the wielder of the discus and the mace, his attendants immediately addressed themselves to yoke his car. And that car resembled in effulgence the fire that shows itself at the time of the universal dissolution, and itself in speed. And it was provided with 2 wheels that resembled the sun and the moon in luster. And it bore emblazonments of moons, both crescent and full, and of fishes, animals, and birds, and it was adorned with garlands of diverse flowers, and with pearls and gems of various kinds all around. And endued with the splendor of the rising sun, it was large and handsome. And variegated with gems and gold, it was furnished with an excellent flagstaff bearing beautiful pennons. And well supplied with every necessary article, and incapable of being resisted by the foe, it was covered with tiger skins, and capable of robbing the fame of every foe. It enhanced the joy of the Yadavas. And they yoked unto it those excellent steeds named Saivya and Sugriva and Megapushpa and Valahaka, after these had been bathed and attired in beautiful harness. And enhancing the dignity of Krishna still further, Garuda, the lord of the feathery creation, came and perched on the flagstaff of that car, producing a terrible rattle. And Soren then mounted on that car, high as the summit of the Meru, and producing a rattle, deep and loud as the sound of the kettle drum or the clouds, and which resembled the celestial car coursing at the will of the rider. And taking Satyaki also upon it, that best of mail being set out, filling the earth and the welkin with the rattle of his chariot wheels. And the sky became cloudless, and auspicious winds began to blow around, and the atmosphere freed from the dust became pure. Indeed, as Vasudeva set out, auspicious animals and birds, whirling by the right side, began to follow him, and cranes and peacocks and swans all followed the slayer of Madhu, uttering cries of good omens. The very fire, fed with holy libations in accompaniment with mantras, freed from smoke, blazed up cheerfully, sending forth its flames towards the right. And Vasishtha and Vamadeva, and Buridyamna and Gaya, and Kratha and Sukra and Kusika and Bhrigu, and other Brahmarshis and celestial rishis united together, all stood on the right side of Krishna, that delighter of the Yadavas, that younger brother of Vasva. And thus worshipped by those and other illustrious rishis and holy men, Krishna set out for the residence of the Kurus. And while Krishna was proceeding, Yudhishthira, the son of Kunti, followed him, as also Bhima and Arjuna and those other Pandavas, viz., the twin sons of Madri. And the valiant Chekatana and Drishtaketu, the ruler of the Chedis, and Drupada and the king of Kasi, and that mighty car warrior Sikandin, and Drishtadhyumna, and Virata with his sons, and the princes of Kakaya also, all these Kshatriyas followed that bull of the Kshatriya race to honor him. And the illustrious king Yudhishthira the just, having followed Govinda to some distance, addressed him in these words in the presence of all those kings. And the son of Kunti embraced that foremost of all persons, who never, from desire, or anger, or fear, or purpose of gain committed the least wrong, whose mind was ever steady, who was a stranger to covetousness, who was conversant with morality and endued with great intelligence and wisdom, who knew the hearts of all creatures and was the Lord of all, who was the God of gods, who was eternal, who was possessed of every virtue, and who bore the auspicious mark on his breast. And embracing him, the king began to indicate what he was to do. Yudhishthira said, that lady who hath brought us from our infancy, who is ever engaged in facts and ascetic penances and propitiatory rites and ceremonies, who is devoted to the worship of the gods and guests, who is always engaged in waiting upon her superiors, who is fond of her sons, bearing for them an affection that knows no bounds, who, O Janardana, is dearly loved by us, who, O grinder of foes, repeatedly saved us from the snares of Suyadana, like a boat saving a shipwrecked crew from the frightful terrors of the sea, and who, O Madhava, however undeserving of woe herself, hath on our account endured countless sufferings, should be asked about her welfare, salute and embrace, and, O, comfort her over and over, overwhelmed with grief as she is on account of her sons, by talking of the Pandavas. Ever since her marriage she hath been the victim, however undeserving, of sorrow and griefs due to the conduct of her father-in-law, and suffering hath been her position. Shall I, O Krishna, ever see the time when, O chastiser of foes, my afflictions being over, I shall be able to make my sorrowing mother happy? On the eve of our exile, from affection for her children, she ran after us in anguish, crying bitterly. But leaving her behind, we went into the woods. Sorrow doth not necessarily kill. It is possible, therefore, that she is alive, being hospitably entertained by the Anarthas, though afflicted with sorrow on account of her sons. O glorious Krishna, salute her for me, the Kuru king Dhritarashtra also, and all those monarchs who are senior to us in age, and Bhishma, and Drona, and Kripa, and King Valaka, and Drona's son and Somadatta, and in fact, every one of the Bharata race, and also Vidura, endued with great wisdom, that counselor of the Kurus, of profound intellect and intimate acquaintance with morality, should all, O slayer of Madhu, be embraced by thee. having in the presence of the kings said these words unto Kesava, Yudhishthira, with Krishna's permission, came back having at first walked round him. Then Arjuna, proceeding a few steps, further said unto his friend, that bull among men, that slayer of hostile heroes, that invincible warrior of Dasara's race, it is known to all the kings, O illustrious Govinda, that at our consultation it was settled that we should ask back the kingdom. If without insulting us, if honoring thee, they honestly give us what we demand, then, O mighty armed one, they would please me greatly and would themselves escape a terrible danger. If, however, Dhritarashtra's son, who always adopts improper means, acts otherwise, then I shall surely, O Janardana, annihilate the Kshatriya race. Vaisampayana continued, when Arjuna said these words, Vrkodara was filled with delight. And that son of Pandu continually quivered with rage, and while still quivering with rage and the delight that filled his heart upon hearing Dhananjaya's words, he set forth a terrible shout. And hearing that shout of his, all the bowmen trembled in fear, and steeds and elephants were seen to pass urine and excreta. And having addressed Kesava then and informed him of his resolution, Arjuna with Janardana's permission came back, having first embraced him. And after all the kings had desisted following him, Janardana set out with a cheerful heart on his car drawn by Saivya, Sugriva, and others. And those steeds of Vasudeva, urged by Daruka, coursed onwards, devouring the sky and drinking the road. And on his way Kesava of mighty arms met with some rishis blazing with Brahmic luster, standing on both sides of the road, and soon alighting from his car, Janardana saluted them reverently. And worshipping them duly, he inquired of them, saying, Is there peace in all the world? Is virtue being duly practiced? And the other three orders obedient to the Brahmanas? And having duly worshipped them, the slayer of Madhu again said, Where have ye been crowned with success? Whither would ye go, and for what object? What also shall I do for yourselves? What has brought your illustrious selves down on the earth? Thus addressed, Jamadagni's son, the friend of Brahma, that lord of both gods and asuras, approached Govinda the slayer of Madhu, embraced him, and said, The celestial rishis of pious deeds, and Brahmanas of extensive acquaintance with the scriptures, and royal sages, O Dasara, and venerable ascetic, these witnesses, O illustrious one, of the former feats of gods and asuras, are desirous of beholding all the kshatriyas of the earth assembled from every side, as also the counselors sitting in the assembly, the kings, and thyself the embodiment of truth, O Janardana. O Kesava, we will go thither for beholding that grand sight. We are also anxious, O Madhava, to listen to those words fraught with virtue and profit, which will be spoken by thee, O chastiser of foes, unto the Kurus in the presence of all the kings. Indeed, Bhishma, and Drona, and others, as also the illustrious Vidura and thyself, O tiger among the Yadavas, ye all will be assembled together in conclave. We desire, O Madhava, to hear the excellent, truthful, and beneficial words that thou wilt utter, and they also, O Govinda. Thou art now informed of our purpose, O thou of mighty arms. We will meet thee again. Go thither safely, O hero. We hope to see thee in the midst of the conclave, seated on an excellent seat, mustering all thy energy and might. Mahabharata, Book 5, Section 84. Vaisampayana said, O smiter of foes, when Devki's son of mighty arms set out, for Hastinapura, 10 mighty car warriors, capable of slaying hostile heroes, fully armed, followed in his train. And 1,000 foot soldiers, and 1,000 horsemen, and attendants by hundreds, also formed his train, carrying, O king, provisions in abundance. Janamejaya said, How did the illustrious slayer of Madhu, of Dasara's race, proceed on his journey? And what omens were seen when that hero set out? Vyasa continued, "Listen to me as I narrate all those natural and unnatural omens that were noticed at the time when the illustrious Krishna departed for Hastinapura. Though there were no clouds in the sky, yet the roll of thunder accompanied by flashes of lightning was heard. And fleecy clouds in a clear sky reigned incessantly in the rear. The 7 large rivers, including the Sindhu, Indus, though flowing eastwards, then flowed in opposite directions. The very directions seemed to be reversed, and nothing could be distinguished. Fires blazed up everywhere, O monarch, and the earth trembled repeatedly. The contents of wells and water vessels by hundreds swelled up and ran out. The whole universe was enveloped in darkness. The atmosphere being filled with dust, neither the cardinal nor the subsidiary points of the horizon could, O king, be distinguished. Loud roars were heard in the sky without any being visible from whom these could emanate. This wonderful phenomenon, O king, was noticed all over the country. A southwesterly wind, with the harsh rattle of the thunder, uprooting trees by the thousands, crushed the city of Hastinapura. In those places, however, O Bharata, through which he of Vrishni's race passed, delicious breezes blew and everything became auspicious. Showers of lotuses and fragrant flowers fell there. The very road became delightful, being free from prickly grass and thorns. At those places where he stayed, Brahmanas by thousands glorified the giver of wealth with laudation, and worshipped him with dishes of curds, ghee, honey, and presents of wealth. The very women, coming out on the road, strewed wild flowers of great fragrance on the person of that illustrious hero, devoted to the welfare of all creatures. He then came upon a delightful spot called Salabhavana, which was filled with every kind of crops, a spot that was delicious and sacred, after having, O bull of the Bharata race, seen various villages abounding in bees, and picturesque to the eye, and delightful to the heart, and after having passed through diverse cities and kingdoms. Always cheerful and of good hearts, well protected by the Bharatas and therefore free from all anxieties on account of the designs of invaders, and unacquainted with calamities of any kind, many of the citizens of Upaplavia, coming out of their town, stood together on the way, desirous of beholding Krishna. And beholding that illustrious one resembling a blazing fire arrived at the spot, they worshipped him who deserved their worship with all the honors of a guest arrived in their abode. When at last that slayer of hostile heroes, Kesva, came to Vrkastala, the sun seemed to redden the sky by his straggling rays of light. Alighting from his car, he duly went through the usual purificatory rites, and ordering the steeds to be unharnessed, he set himself to say his evening prayers. And Daruka also, setting the steeds free, tended them according to the rules of equine science, and taking off the yokes and traces, let them loose. After this was done, the slayer of Madhu said, "Here must we pass the night for the sake of Yudhishthira's mission." Ascertaining that to be his intention, the attendants soon set a temporary abode and prepared in a trice excellent food and drink. Amongst the Brahmanas, O king, that resided in the village, they that were of noble and high descent, modest, and obedient to the injunctions of the Vedas in their conduct, approached that illustrious chastiser of foes, Hrishikesa, and honored him with their benedictions and auspicious speeches. And having honored him of Dasara's race that deserveth honor from every one, they placed at the disposal of that illustrious person their houses, abounding in wealth. Saying unto them enough, the illustrious Krishna paid them proper homage, each according to his rank, and wending with them to their house, he returned in their company to his own tent. And feeding all the Brahmanas with sweetmeats and himself taking his meals with them, Kesva passed the night happily there. Mahabharata, Book 5, Section 85. Vyasa said, meanwhile, understanding from his spies that the slayer of Madhu had set out, Dhritarashtra, with his hair standing erect, respectfully addressing the mighty-armed Bhishma and Dorna and Sanjaya and the illustrious Vidura, said these words unto Duryodhana and his counselors, O scion of Kuru's race, strange and wonderful is the news that we hear. Men, women, and children are talking of it. Others are speaking of it respectfully, and others again assembled together. Within houses where men congregate and in open spots, people and discussing it. All say that Dasara of great prowess will come hither for the sake of Pandavas. The slayer of Madhu is, by all means, deserving of honor and worship at our hands. He is the Lord of all creatures, and on him resteth the course of everything in the universe. Indeed, intelligence and prowess and wisdom and energy all reside in Madhava. Worthy of honor at the hands of all righteous persons, he is the foremost of all men, and is, indeed, eternal virtue. If worshipped, he is sure to bestow happiness, and if not worshipped, is sure to inflict misery. If that smiter of foes, Dasara, be gratified with our offerings, all our wishes may be obtained by us, through his grace, in the midst of the kings. O chastiser of foes, make without loss of time every arrangement for his reception. Let pavilions be set up on the road, furnished with every object of enjoyment. O mighty armed son of Gandhari, make such arrangements that he may be gratified with thee. What doth Bhishma think in this matter? At this, Bhishma and others, all applauding those words of King Dhritarashtra, said, Excellent. King Duryodhana then, understanding their wishes, ordered delightful sites to be chosen for the erection of pavilions. Many pavilions were thereupon constructed, abounding with gems of every kind, at proper intervals and at delightful spots. And the king sent thither handsome seats endued with excellent qualities, beautiful girls, and scents and ornaments, and fine robes, and excellent viands, and drink of diverse qualities, and fragrant garlands of many kinds. And the king of the Kurus took especial care to erect, for the reception of Krishna, a highly beautiful pavilion at Vrkasthala, full of precious gems. And having made all these arrangements that were godlike and much above the capacity of human beings, King Duryodhana informed Dhritarashtra of the same. Kesava, however, of Dasara's race, arrived at the capital of the Kurus, without casting a single glance at all those pavilions and all those gems of diverse kinds. Mahabharata, Book 5, Section 86. Dhritarashtra said, O Vidura, Janardana hath set out from Upaplavia. He is now staying at Vrkasthala and will come here tomorrow. Janardana is the leader of the Ahukas, the foremost person amongst all the members of the Satwata race, is high-souled, and endued with great energy and great might. Indeed, Madhava is the guardian and protector of the prosperous kingdom of Vrishnis, and is the illustrious great-grandsire of even the three worlds. The Vrishnis adore the wisdom of the intelligent Krishna, even as the Adityas, the Vasus, and the Rudras adore the wisdom of Vrihaspati. O virtuous one, I will in thy presence offer worship unto that illustrious scion of Dasara's race. Listen to me about that worship. I will give him 16 cars made of gold, each drawn by 4 excellent and well-adorned steeds of uniform color and of the Valaka breed. O Kaurava, I will give him 8 elephants with temporal juice always trickling down and tusks as large as poles of plows, capable of smiting hostile ranks, and each having 8 human attendants. I will give him a century of handsome maidservants of the complexion of gold, all virgins, and manservants I will give him as many. I will give him 18,000 woolen blankets soft to the touch, all presented to us by the hillmen. I will also give him 1,000 deerskins brought from China and other things of the kind that may be worthy of Kesava. I will also give him this serene gem of the purest rays that shines day and night, for Kesava alone deserves it. This car of mine drawn by mules that makes a round of full 14 yojanas a day, I will also give him. I will place before him everyday provisions 8 times greater than what is necessary for the animals and attendants that form his train. Mounted on their cars, having their person well adorned, all my sons and grandsons, save Duryodhana, will go out to receive him. And thousands of graceful and well-decked dancing girls will go out on foot to receive the illustrious Kesva. And the beautiful girls that will go out of the town for receiving Janardana will go out unveiled. Let all the citizens with their wives and children behold the illustrious slayer of Madhu with as much respect and devotion as they show when casting their eyes on the morning sun. Let the canopy all round, at my command, be crowded with pendants and banners, and let the road, by which Kesva will come, be well watered and its dust removed. Let Dasasana's abode, which is better than Duryodhana's, be cleansed and well adorned without delay. That mansion consisting of many beautiful buildings is pleasant and delightful, and abounds with the wealth of all seasons. It is in that abode that all my wealth, as also Duryodhana's, are deposited. Let all that scion of the Vrishni race deserves be given unto him. Mahabharata, Book 5, Section 87. Vidura said, O monarch, O best of men, thou art respected by 3 worlds. Thou, O Bharata, art loved and regarded by everybody. Venerable in year as thou art, what thou wilt say at this age can never be against the dictates of the scriptures or the conclusions of well-directed reason, for thy mind is ever calm. Thy subjects, O king, are well assured that, like characters on stone, light in the sun, and billows in the ocean, virtue resideth in thee permanently. O monarch, every one is honored and made happy in consequence of thy numerous virtues. Strive, therefore, with thy friends and kinsmen to retain those virtues of thine. O, adopt sincerity of behavior. Do not from folly, cause the wholesale destruction of thy sons, grandsons, friends, kinsmen, and all that are dear to thee. It is much, O king, that thou wishest to give unto Kesva as thy guest. Know, however, that Kesva deserves all this and much more, aye, the whole earth itself. I truly swear by my own soul that thou dost not wish to give all this unto Krishna either from motives of virtue or for the object of doing what is agreeable to him. O giver of great wealth, all this betrays only deception, falsehood, and insincerity. By the external acts, O king, I know thy secret purpose. The 5 Pandavas, O king, desire only 5 villages. Thou, however, dost not wish to give them even that. Thou art, therefore, unwilling to make peace. Thou seekest to make the mighty armed hero of Vrishni's race thy own by means of thy wealth, and foot, by this means, thou seekest to separate Kesva from the Pandavas. I tell thee, however, that thou art unable, by wealth, or attention, or worship, to separate Krishna from the Nanjaya. I know magnanimity of Krishna, I know firm devotion of Arjuna towards him, I know that Dhananjaya, who is Kesva's life, is incapable of being given up by the latter. Save only a vessel of water, save only the washing of his feet, save only the usual inquiries after the welfare of those he will see, Janardana will not accept any other hospitality or set his eyes on any other thing. Offer him, however, O king, that hospitality which is the most agreeable to that illustrious one deserving of every respect, for there is no respect that may not be offered to Janardana. Give unto Kesva, O king, that object in expectation of which, from desire of benefiting both parties, he cometh to the Kurus. Kesva desires peace to be established between thee and Duryodhana on one side and the Pandavas on the other. Follow his counsels, O monarch. Thou art their father, O king, and the Pandavas are thy sons. Thou art old, and they are children to thee in years. Behave as father towards them, that are disposed to pay thee filial regard. Mahabharata, Book 5, Section 88. Duryodhana said, "All that Vidura hath said about Krishna hath indeed been truly said, for Janardana is greatly devoted to the Pandavas and can never be separated from them. All the diverse kinds of wealth, O foremost of kings, that are proposed to be bestowed upon Janardana ought never to be bestowed upon him. Kesava is, of course, not unworthy of our worship, but both time and place are against it, for he, Krishna, O king, on receiving our worship, will very likely think that we are worshipping him out of fear. This is my certain conviction, O king, that an intelligent Kshatriya must not do that which may bring disgrace upon him. It is well known to me that the large-eyed Krishna deserveth the most reverential worship of the three worlds. It is quite out of place, therefore, O illustrious king, to give him anything now, for war having been decided upon, it should never be put off by hospitality." Vyasa continued, hearing these words of his, the grandsire of the Kurus spoke these words unto the royal son of Vichitravirya, worshipped or not worshipped, Janardana never becometh angry. None, however, can treat him with disrespect, for Kesava is not contemptible. Whatever, O mighty one, he purposeth to do is incapable of being frustrated by anybody by every means in his power. Do without hesitation what Krishna of mighty arms saith, and bring about peace with the Pandavas through Vasudeva as the means. Truly Janardana, possessed of virtuous soul, will say what is consistent with religion and profit. It behoveth thee, therefore, with all thy friends, to tell him what only is agreeable to him." Duryodhana said, "O grandsire, I can, by no means, live by sharing this swelling prosperity of mine with the Pandavas. Listen, this, indeed, is a great resolution which I have formed. I will imprison Janardana, who is the refuge of the Pandavas. He will come here tomorrow morning, and when he is confined, the Vrishnis and the Pandavas, the whole earth, will submit to me. What may be the means for accomplishing it, so that Janardana may not guess our purpose, and so that no danger also may overtake us, it behoveth thee to say." Vyasa continued, hearing these fearful words of his son about imprisoning Krishna, Dhritarashtra, with all his counselors, was very much pained and became deeply afflicted. King Dhritarashtra then spoke those words unto Duryodhana, "O ruler of men, never say this again, this is not immemorial custom. Hrishikesa cometh here as an ambassador. He is, besides, related to and is dear to us. He hath done us no wrong, how then doth he deserve imprisonment?" Bhishma said, "This wicked son of thine, O Dhritarashtra, hath his hour come. He chooseth evil, not good, though entreated by his well-wishers. Thou also followest in the wake of this wicked wretch of sinful surroundings, who treadeth a thorny path, setting at naught the words of his well-wisher. This exceedingly wicked son of thine, with all his counselors coming in contact with Krishna of unstained acts, will be destroyed in a moment. I dare not listen to the words of this sinful and wicked wretch that hath abandoned all virtue." Having said this, that aged chief of the Bharata race, Bhishma of unbaffled prowess, inflamed with rage, rose and left that place. Mahabharata, Book 5, Section 89. Vyasa said, rising up from his bed at day dawn, Krishna went through his morning rites, and taking leave of the Bharatas, set out for the city of the Kurus. All the inhabitants of Vrikasthala, bidding farewell unto that mighty one of long arms while he was about to depart, all returned to their homes. And all the Dhritarashtras except Duryodhana, attired in excellent robes, and with Bhishma, Drona, Kripa, and others, went out to meet him. And the citizens by thousands, O king, on cars of diverse kinds, and many on foot, also came out, desirous of beholding Hrishikesa. And meeting on the way Bhishma of spotless deed, and Drona, and Dhritarashtra's sons, he entered the city, surrounded by them all. And in honor of Krishna, the city was beautifully adorned, and the principal streets were decorated with diverse jewels and gems. And, O king, O bull of the Bharata race, on that occasion no one, man, woman, or child remained indoors, so eager were the citizens for beholding Vasudeva. And all the citizens came out and lined the streets and bent their heads down to the ground singing eulogies in his honor, O king, when Hrishikesa entered the city and passed through it. And substantial mansions, filled with high-born ladies, seemed to be on the point of falling down on the ground in consequence of their living weight. And although Vasudeva's steeds were endued with great speed, yet they moved very slowly through that dense mass of human beings. And that lotus-eyed grinder of foes then entered Dhritarashtra's ash-colored palace, which was enriched with numerous buildings. And having passed through the first 3 chambers of the palace, that chastiser of foes, Kesva, came upon the royal son of Vichitravirya. And upon that son of Dasara's race approaching his presence, the blind monarch of great fame stood up along with Drona and Bhishma, Kripa and Somadatta, and King Valaka also, all stood up for honoring Janardana. And the Vrishni hero, having approached King Dhritarashtra of great fame, worshipped him and Bhishma with proper words and without losing any time. And having offered that worship unto them according to established usage, Madhava the slayer of Madhu greeted the other kings according to their seniority in years. And Janardana then accosted the illustrious Drona and his son, and Valaka, and Kripa, and Somadatta. And there in that chamber lay a spacious seat of beautiful workmanship, made of gold and set with jewels. And at Dhritarashtra's request, Achyuta took that seat, and the priests of Dhritarashtra duly offered Janardana a cow, honey and curds and water. And after the rites of hospitality were over, Govinda remained there for a while, surrounded by the Kurus, laughing and jesting with them according to their relationship with him. And that illustrious grinder of foes, honored and worshipped by Dhritarashtra, came out with the king's permission. And Madhava, having duly greeted all the Kurus in their assembly, then went to the delightful abode of Vidura, and Vidura, having approached Janardana of Dasara's race, thus arrived at his abode, worshipped him with every auspicious and desirable offering. And he said, What use, O lotus-eyed one, in telling thee of the joy I feel at this advent of thine, for thou art the inner soul of all embodied creatures. And after the hospitable reception was over, Vidura, conversant with all the principles of morality, inquired of Govinda, the slayer of Madhu, about the welfare of Pandavas. And that scion of Dasara's race, that chief of the Vrishnis, unto whom the past and the future were as the present, knowing that Vidura was loved by the Pandavas and friendly towards them, and learned, and firm in morality, and honest, and harboring no wrath against the Pandavas, and wise, began to tell him everything in detail about the doings of the sons of Pandu. Mahabharata, Book 5, Section 90. Vaisampayana said, Janardana, the chastiser of foes, after his meeting with Vidura, went then in the afternoon to his paternal aunt, Pritha. And beholding Krishna, whose countenance beamed with the effulgence of the radiant sun, arrived at her abode, she encircled his neck with her arms, and began to pour forth her lamentations, remembering her sons. And at the sight, after a long time, of Govinda of Vrishni's race, the companion of those mighty children of hers, the tears of Pritha flowed fast. And after Krishna, that foremost of warriors, had taken his seat, having first received the rites of hospitality, Pritha, with a woebegone face and voice choked with tears, addressed him, saying, They, who, from their earliest years, have always waited with reverence on their superiors, they, who, in friendship are attached to one another, they, who, deprived deceitfully of their kingdom, had gone to seclusion, however worthy of living in the midst of friends and attendants, they, who have subjugated both wrath and joy, are devoted to Brahmins, and truthful in speech, those children of mine, who, abandoning kingdom and enjoyments and leaving my miserable self behind, had gone to the woods, plucking the very roots of my heart, those illustrious sons of Pandu, O Kesva, who have suffered woe however undeserving of it, how, alas, did they live in the deep forest abounding with lions and tigers and elephants? Deprived in their infancy of their father, they were all tenderly brought up by me. How, also, did they live in the mighty forest, without seeing both their parents? From their infancy, O Kesva, the Pandavas were aroused from their beds by the music of conchs and drums and flutes. That they who, while at home, used to sleep in high palatial chambers on soft blankets and skins of the runca deer, and were waked up in the morning by the grunt of elephants, the neighing of steeds, the clatter of car wheels, and the music of conchs and cymbals in accompaniment with the notes of flutes and lyres, who, adored at early dawn with sacred-sounding hymns uttered by Brahmanas, worshipped those amongst them that deserved such worship with robes and jewels and ornaments, and who were blessed with the auspicious benedictions of those illustrious members of the regenerate order, as a return for the homage the latter received, that they, O Janardana, could sleep in the deep woods, resounding with the shrill and dissonant cries of beasts of prey, can hardly be believed, undeserving as they were of so much woe. How could they, O slayer of Madhu, who were roused from their beds by music of cymbals and drums and conchs and flutes, with the honeyed strains of songstresses and the eulogies chanted by bards and professional reciters, alas, how could they be waked in the deep woods by the yells of wild beasts? He that is endued with modesty is firm in truth, with senses under control and compassions for all creatures. He that hath vanquished both lust and malice and always treadeth the path of the righteous. He that ably bore the heavy burthen borne by Amvarasha and Mendathri Yayati and Nahusha and Bharata and Dilip and Sivi the son of Usanara and other royal sages of old. He that is endued with an excellent character and disposition, he that is conversant with virtue, and whose prowess is incapable of being baffled, he that is fit to become the monarch of the three worlds in consequence of his possession of every accomplishment, he that is the foremost of all the Kurus lawfully and in respect of learning and disposition, who is handsome and mighty armed and hath no enemy. Oh, how is that Yudhishthira of virtuous soul, and of complexion like that of pure gold? He that hath the strength of 10,000 elephants and the speed of the wind. He that is mighty and ever wrathful amongst the sons of Pandu, he that always doth good to his brothers, and is, therefore, dear to them all, he, O slayer of Madhu, that slew Kachaka with all his relatives, he that is the slayer of the Kauravas, of Hidimva, and of Vaka, he that in prowess is equal unto Sakra, and in might unto the wind god, he that is terrible, and in wrath is equal unto Madhava himself, he that is the foremost of all smiters, that wrathful son of Pandu and chastiser of foes, who, restraining his rage, might, impatience, and controlling his soul, is obedient to the commands of his elder brother. Speak to me, O Janardana, tell me how is that smiter of immeasurable valor, that Bhimasena, who in aspect also justifies his name, that Vrakotar of possessing arms like maces, that mighty second son of Pandu, O Krishna. That Arjuna of two arms, who always regardeth himself as superior to his namesake of old with 1,000 arms, and who at one stretch shooteth 500 arrows, that son of Pandu, who in the use of weapons is equal unto King Kartavirya, and energy unto Aditya, and restraint of senses unto a great sage, and forgiveness unto the earth, and in prowess unto Indra himself, he, by whose prowess, O slayer of Madhu, the Kurus amongst all the kings of the earth have obtained this extensive empire, blazing with effulgence, he, whose strength of arms is always adored by the Pandavas, that son of Pandu, who is the foremost of all car warriors, and whose prowess is incapable of being frustrated. He, from an encounter with whom in battle no foe ever escapeth with life, he, O Achyuta, who is the conqueror of all, but who is incapable of being conquered by any, he, who is the refuge of the Pandavas like Vasva of the celestials. How, O Kesva, is that Dhananjaya now, that brother and friend of thine? He that is compassionate to all creatures, is endued with modesty and acquainted with mighty weapons, is soft and delicate and virtuous. He that is dear to me, that mighty bowman Sadeva, that hero and ornament of assemblies, he, O Krishna, who is youthful in years, is devoted to the service of his brothers, and is conversant with both virtue and profit, whose brothers, O slayer of Madhu, always applaud the disposition of that high-souled and well-behaved son of mine. Tell me, O thou of the Vrishni race, of that heroic Sadeva, that foremost of warriors, that son of Madri, who always waiteth submissively on his elder brothers, and so reverentially on me. He that is delicate and youthful in years, he that is brave and handsome in person, that son of Pandu who is dear unto his brothers as also unto all, and who, indeed, is their very life though walking with a separate body, he that is conversant with various modes of warfare, he that is endued with great strength and is a mighty bowman. Tell me, O Krishna, whether that dear child of mine, Nakula, who was brought up in luxury, is now well in body and mind? O thou of mighty arms, shall I ever behold again Nakula of mine, that mighty car warrior, that delicate youth brought up in every luxury and undeserving of woe? Behold, O hero, I am alive today, even I, who could know peace by losing sight of Nakula for the short space of time taken up by a wink of the eye. More than all my sons, O Janardana, is the daughter of Drupada dear to me. High-born and possessed of great beauty, she is endued with every accomplishment. Truthful in speech, she chose the company of her lords, giving up that of her sons. Indeed, leaving her dear children behind, she followeth the sons of Pandu. Waited upon at one time by a large train of servants, and adored by her husbands with every object of enjoyment, the possessor of every auspicious mark and accomplishment. How, O Achyuta, is that Draupadi now? Having 5 heroic husbands who are all smiters of foes and almighty bowmen, each equal unto Agni in energy, alas, woe hath yet been the lot of Draupada's daughter. I have not for 14 long years, O chastiser of foes, beheld the princess of Panchala, that daughter-in-law of mine who herself hath been a prey to constant anxiety on account of her children, whom she hath not seen for that period. When Draupada's daughter, endued with such a disposition, doth not enjoy uninterrupted happiness, it seemeth, O Govinda, that the happiness one enjoyeth is never the fruit of one's acts. When I remember the forcible dragging of Draupadi to the assembly, then neither Vibhatsu nor Yudhishthira, nor Bhima, nor Nakula, nor Sadeva becometh an object of affection to me. Never before had a heavier grief been mine than what pierced my heart when that wretch Dasasana, moved by wrath and covetousness, dragged Draupadi, then in her flow, and therefore clad in a single raiment, into the presence of her father-in-law in the assembly, and exposed her to the gaze of all the Kurus. It is known that amongst those that were present, King Valaka, Kripa, Somadatta, were pierced with grief at this sight, but of all present in that assembly, it was Vidura whom I worship. Neither by learning, nor by wealth doth one become worthy of homage. It is by disposition alone that one becomes respectable, O Krishna, endued with great intelligence and profound wisdom. The character of the illustrious Vidura, like unto an ornament that he wears, adorns the whole world. Vaisampayana continued, filled with delight at the advent of Govinda, and afflicted with sorrow on account of her sons, Pritha gave expression to all her diverse griefs. And she said, Can gambling in the slaughter of deer, which, O chastiser of foes, occupied all wicked kings of old, be a pleasant occupation for the Pandavas? The thought consumeth, O Kesva, that being dragged into the presence of all the Kurus in their assembly by Dhritarashtra's sons, insults worse than death were heaped on Krishna, O chastiser of foes, the banishment of my sons from their capital and their wanderings in the wilderness, these and various other griefs, O Janardana, have been mine. Nothing could be more painful to me or to my sons themselves, O Madhava, than that they should have had to pass a period of concealment, shut up in a stranger's house. Full 14 years have passed since the day when Duryodhana first exited my sons. If misery is destructive of fruits of sins, and happiness is dependent on the fruits of religious merit, then it seems that happiness may still be ours after so much misery. I never made any distinction between Dhritarashtra's sons and mine, so far as maternal affection is concerned. By that truth, O Krishna, I shall surely behold thee along with the Pandavas safely come out of the present strife with their foes slain, and the kingdom recovered by them. The Pandavas themselves have observed their vow with such truthfulness, sticking to dharma, that they are incapable of being defeated by their enemies. In the matter of my present sorrows, however, I blame neither myself nor Suryodhana, but my father alone. Like a wealthy man giving away a sum of money in gift, my father gave me away to Kuntabhoja. While a child playing with a ball in my hands, thy grandfather, O Kesava, gave me away to his friend, the illustrious Kuntabhoja. Abandoned, O chastiser of foes, by my own father, and my father-in-law, and afflicted with insufferable woes, what use, O Madhava, is there in my being alive? On the night of Savyasakan's birth, in the lying-in room, an invisible voice told me, "This son of thine will conquer the whole world, and his fame will reach the very heavens." Slaying the Kurus in a great battle and recovering the kingdom, thy son Dhananjaya will, with his brothers, perform 3 grand sacrifices. I do not doubt the truth of that announcement. I bow unto Dharma that upholds the creation. If Dharma be not a myth, then, O Krishna, thou wilt surely achieve all that the invisible voice said. Neither the loss of my husband, O Madhava, nor loss of wealth, nor our hostility with the Kurus ever inflicted such rending pains on me as that separation from my children. What peace can my heart know when I do not see before me that wielder of Gandiva, viz. Dhananjaya, that foremost of all bearers of arms? I have not, for 14 years, O Govinda, seen Yudhishthira, and Dhananjaya, and Vrikodara. Men perform the obsequies of those that are missed for a long time, taking them for dead. Practically, O Janardana, my children are all dead to me, and I am dead to them. Say unto the virtuous king Yudhishthira, O Madhava, that thy virtue, O son, is daily decreasing. Act thou, therefore, in such a way that thy religious merit may not diminish. Fie to them that live, O Janardana, by dependence on others. Even death is better than a livelihood gained by meanness. Thou must also say unto Dhananjaya and the ever-ready Vrikodara that the time for that event is come in view of which a Kshatriya woman bringeth forth a son. If you allow the time slip without your achieving anything, then, though at present ye are respected by all the world, ye will be only doing that which would be regarded as contemptible. And if contempt touches you, I will abandon you forever. When the time cometh, even life, which is so dear, should be laid down, O foremost of men, thou must also say unto Madri's sons that are always devoted to Kshatriya customs, more than life itself, strive ye to win objects of enjoyment, procurable by prowess, since objects won by prowess alone can please the heart of a person desirous of living according to Kshatriya customs. Repairing thither, O mighty armed one, say unto that foremost of all bearers of arms, Arjuna the heroic son of Pandu, tread thou the path that may be pointed out to thee by Draupadi. It is known to thee, O Kesava, that when inflamed with rage, Bhima and Arjuna, each like unto the universal destroyer himself, can slay the very gods. That was a great insult offered unto them, viz., that their wife Krishna, having been dragged into the assembly, was addressed in such humiliating terms by Dusasana and Karna. Duryodhana himself hath insulted Bhima of mighty energy in the very presence of the Kuru chiefs. I am sure he will reap the fruit of that behavior, for Vrkodara, provoked by a foe, knoweth no peace. Indeed, once provoked, Bhima forgets it not for a long while, even until that grinder of foes exterminates the enemy and his allies. The loss of kingdom did not grieve me, the defeated dice did not grieve me. That the illustrious and beautiful princess of Panchala was dragged into the assembly while clad in a single raiment and made to hear bitter words grieved me most. What, O Krishna, could be a greater grief to me? Alas, ever devoted to Kshatriya customs and endued with great beauty, the princess, while ill, underwent that cruel treatment, and though possessing powerful protectors, was then as helpless as if she had none. O slayer of Madhu, having thee and that foremost of all mighty persons, Rama, and that mighty car warrior Pradyumna for me and my children's protectors, and having, O foremost of men, my sons the invincible Bhima and the unretreating Vijaya of both alive, that I had still such grief to bear is certainly strange. Vaisampayana continued, thus addressed by her, Sorry the friend of Partha, then comforted his paternal aunt, Pritha, afflicted with grief on account of her sons. And Vasudeva said, What woman is there, O aunt, in the world who is like thee? The daughter of King Surasena, thou art, by marriage, admitted into Ajamata's race. Highborn and highly married, thou art like a lotus transplanted from one mighty lake into another. Endued with every prosperity and great good fortune, thou wert adored by thy husband. The wife of Hero, thou hast again given birth to heroic sons. Possessed of every virtue, and endued with great wisdom, it behoveth thee to bear with patience both happiness and misery. Overcoming sleep and languor, and wrath and joy, and hunger and thirst, and cold and heat, thy children are always in the enjoyment of that happiness, which, as heroes, should buy theirs. Endued with great exertion and great might, thy sons, without affecting the comforts derivable from the senses such as satisfy only the low and the mean, always pursued that happiness which as heroes they should. Nor are they satisfied like little men having mean desires. They that are wise enjoy or suffer the same of whatever enjoyable or sufferable, indeed, ordinary persons, affecting comforts that satisfy the low and the mean, desire an equable state of dullness, without excitement of any kind. They, however, that are superior, desire either the acutest of human suffering or the highest of all enjoyments that is given to man. The wise always delight in extremes. They find no pleasure betwixt, they regard the extreme to be happiness, while that which lies between is regarded by them as misery. The Pandavas with Krishna saluteth thee through me. Representing themselves to be well, they have inquired after thy welfare. Thou wilt soon behold them become the lords of the whole world, with their foes slain, and themselves invested with prosperity. Thus consoled by Krishna, Kunti, afflicted with grief on account of her sons, but soon dispelling the darkness caused by her temporary loss of understanding, replied unto Janardana, saying, Whatever, O mighty armed one, thou, O slayer of Madhu, regardest as proper to be done, let that be done without sacrificing righteousness, O chastiser of foes, and without the least guile. I know, O Krishna, what the power of thy truth and of thy lineage is. I know also what judgment and what prowess thou bringest to bear upon the accomplishment of whatever concerns thy friends. In our race, thou art virtue's self, thou art truth, and thou art the embodiment of ascetic austerities. Thou art the great Brahma, and everything rests on thee. What, therefore, thou hast said must be true. Vaisampayana continued, bidding her farewell and respectfully walking round her, the mighty-armed Govinda then departed for Duryodhana's mansion. Mahabharata, Book 5, Section 91. Vyasa said, with Pritha's leave and having walked round her, the chastiser of foes, Govinda, also called Sari, went to Duryodhana's palace that was furnished with great wealth, adorned with beautiful seats, and was like unto the abode of Purandara himself. Unobstructed by the orderlies in waiting, that hero of great fame crossed 3 spacious yards in succession, and then entered that mansion looking like a mass of clouds, high as the summit of a hill, and blazing forth in splendor. And he there beheld Dhritarashtra's son of mighty arms seated on his throne in the midst of 1,000 kings, and surrounded by all the Kurus. And he also beheld their Dusasana and Karna and Sakuni, the son of Suvala, seated on their respective seats by the side of Duryodhana. And on that scion of Dasara's race entering the court, Dhritarashtra's son of great fame rose up from his seat with his counselors for honoring the slayer of Madhu. And Kesava then greeted Dhritarashtra's sons and all his counselors, as also all the kings that were present there, according to their respective ages. And Achyuta of Vrishni's race then took his seat on a beautiful seat made of gold and overlaid with carpet embroidered with gold. And the Kuru king then offered unto Janardana a cow, and honey and curds and water, and placed at his service palaces and mansions and the whole kingdom. And then the Kauravas, with all the kings there present, worshipped Govinda on his seat and resembling the sun himself in splendor. The worship being over, King Duryodhana invited him of Vrishni's race, that foremost of victors, to eat at his house. Kesava, however, did not accept the invitation. The Kuru king Duryodhana, seated in the midst of the Kurus, in a gentle voice, but with deception lurking behind his words, eyeing Karna, and addressing Kesava, then said, Why, O Janardana, dost thou not accept the diverse kinds of viands and drinks, robes and beds that have all been prepared and kept ready for thee? Thou hast granted aid to both sides, thou art engaged in the good of both parties. Thou art again the foremost of Dhritarashtra's relations, and much loved by him. Thou, O Govinda, also knowest fully, and all things in details, both religion and profit. I, therefore, desire to hear, O bearer of the discus and the mace, what the true reason is of this thy refusal. Vyasa continued, the high-souled Govinda, of eyes like lotus leaves, then raising his mighty right arm, and in a voice deep as that of the clouds, replied unto the king in excellent words fraught with reasons, words that were clear, distinct, correctly pronounced, and without a single letter dropped, saying, Envoys, O king, eat and accept worship only after the success of their missions. Therefore, O Bharata, after my mission becomes successful, thou mayest entertain me and my attendants. Thus answered, Dhritarashtra's son again said unto Janardana, It behoveth thee not, O Kesava, to behave towards us in this way. Whether thou becomest successful or unsuccessful, we are endeavoring to please thee, O slayer of Madhu, because of thy relationship with us. It seems, however, that all our efforts, O thou of Dasara's race, are fruitless. Nor do we see the reason, O slayer of Madhu, in consequence of which, O foremost of men, thou acceptest not the worship offered by us from love and friendship. With thee, O Govinda, we have no hostility, no war. Therefore, on reflection, it will seem to thee that words such as these scarcely become thee. Vyasa continued, thus addressed by the king, Janardana of Dasara's race, casting his eyes on Dhritarashtra's son and on his counselors, replied, saying, Not from desire, nor from wrath, nor from malice, nor for gain, nor for the sake of argument, nor from temptation, would I abandon virtue. One taketh another's food when one is in distress. At present, however, O king, thou hast not inspired love in me by any act of thine, nor have I myself been plunged into distress. Without any reason, O king, thou hatest, from the moment of their birth, thy dear and gentle brothers, the Pandavas endued with every virtue. This unreasonable hatred of thine for the sons of Pritha ill becometh thee. The sons of Pandu are all devoted to virtue. Who, indeed, can do them the least injury? He that hateth them, hateth me, he that loveth them, loveth me. Know that the virtuous Pandavas and my own self have but a common soul. He, who, following the impulses of lust and wrath, and from darkness of soul, hateth and seeketh to injure one that is possessed of every good quality, is regarded as the vilest of men. That wrathful wretch of every good quality is regarded as the vilest of men. That wrathful wretch of uncontrolled soul, who, from ignorance and avarice hateth his kinsman endued with every auspicious quality, can never enjoy his prosperity long. He, on the other hand, who, by good offices, winneth over persons endued with good qualities, even if he beareth aversion of them within his heart, enjoyeth prosperity and fame for ever and ever. Defiled by wickedness, all this food, therefore, deserveth not to be eaten by me. The food supplied by Vidura alone should, I think, be eaten by me. Having said this unto Duryodhana, who was ever incapable of bearing anything against his own wishes, Kesva of mighty arms then came out of that blazing palace of Dhritarashtra's son. And the high-souled Vasudeva of mighty arms, coming out of that mansion, directed his steps towards the abode of the illustrious Vidura. And while that mighty-armed one staying within Vidura's abode, thither came unto him Drona, and Kripa, and Bhishma, and Valaka, and many of the Kauravas. And the Kauravas that came there addressed Madhava, the heroic slayer of Madhu, saying, O thou of Vrishni's race, we place at thy disposal our houses with all the wealth within them. The slayer of Madhu, of mighty energy, answered them saying, Ye may go away. I am much honored by these your offers. And after all the Kurus had gone away, Vidura, with great care entertained that unvanquished hero of Dasara's race with every object of desire. And Kunti then placed before the illustrious Kesva clean and savory food in abundance. Therewith the slayer of Madhu first gratified the Brahmanas. Indeed, from that food he first gave a portion, along with much wealth, unto a number of Brahmanas conversant with the Vedas, and then with his attendants, like Vasva in the midst of the Marutas, he dined on what remained of the clean and savory food supplied by Vidura. Mahabharata, Book 5, Section 92. Vaisampayana said, after Kesva had dined and been refreshed, Vidura said unto him during the night, O Kesva, this advent of thine hath not been a well-judged one, for, O Janardana, Dhritarashtra's son transgresseth the rules of both prophet and religion, is wicked and wrathful, insulteth others, though himself desirous of honors, and disobeyeth the commands of the aged. He is, O Madhava, a transgressor of the scriptures, ignorant, and of wicked soul, already overtaken by fate, untractable, and disposed to do evil to those that seek his good. His soul is possessed by desire and lust. He foolishly regardeth himself as very wise. He is the enemy of all his true friends. Ever suspicious, without any control over his soul, and ungrateful, he hath abandoned all virtue and is in love with sin. He is foolish, with understanding uncultivated, a slave of his senses, ever obedient to the impulses of lust and avarice, and irresolute in every act that should be done. He is endued with these and many other vices. Although thou wilt point out to him what is for his good, he will yet disregard it all, moved by pride and anger. He hath great faith in Bhishma, and Drona, and Kripa, and Karna, and Drona's son, and Jayadratha, and, therefore, he never setteth his heart on peace, O Janardana. Dhritarashtra's sons, with Karna, firmly believe that the Pandavas are incapable of even looking at Bhishma, Drona, and other heroes, not to speak of fighting against them. The foolish Duryodhana of limited sight, having assembled a huge army, regardeth, O slayer of Madhu, that his purposes are already achieved. The foolish son of Dhritarashtra hath arrived at the conclusion that Karna, single-handed, is competent to vanquish his foes. He will, therefore, never make peace. Thou, O Kesava, desirest to establish peace and brotherly feelings between the two parties. But know that all the sons of Dhritarashtra have come to the conclusion that they would not give unto the Pandavas what, indeed, the latter have a right to. With those that are so resolved, thy words will certainly prove vain. Where, O slayer of Madhu, words, good or bad, are of the same effect, no wise man would spend his breath for nothing, like a singer before the deaf. As a Brahmana before a conclave of Chandalas, thy words, O Madhava, would command no respect among those ignorant and wicked wretches that have no reverence for all that deserveth reverence. Foolish, as long as he hath strength, he will never obey thy counsels. Whatever words thou mayest speak to him will be perfectly futile. It doth not seem proper to me, O Krishna, that thou shouldst go into the midst of these wicked-minded wretches seated together. It doth not seem proper to me, O Krishna, that going thither thou shouldst utter words against those wicked-souled, foolish, unrighteous wights, strong in number. In consequence of their having never worshipped the aged, in consequence of their having been blinded by prosperity and pride, and owing to the pride of youth and wrath, they will never accept the good advice thou mayest place before them. He hath mustered a strong force, O Madhava, and he hath his suspicions of thyself. He will, therefore, never obey any counsel that thou mayest offer. The sons of Dhritarashtra, O Janardana, are inspired with the firm belief that at present Indra himself, at the head of all the celestials, is incapable of defeating them in battle. Efficacious as thy words always are, they will prove to be of no efficacy with persons impressed with such a conviction and who always follow the impulses of lust and wrath. Staying in the midst of his ranks of elephants and his army consisting of cars and heroic infantry, the foolish and wicked Duryodhana, with all fears dispelled, regardeth the whole earth to have already been subjugated by him. Indeed, Dhritarashtra's son coveteth extensive empire on the earth without any rivals. Peace, therefore, with him is unattainable. That which he hath in his possession he regardeth as unalterably his. Alas, the destruction on the earth seems to be at hand for the sake of Duryodhana, for, impelled by fate, the kings of the earth, with all the Kshatriya warriors, have assembled together, desirous of battling with the Pandavas. All those kings, O Krishna, are in enmity with thee, and have all been deprived of their possessions before this by thee. Through fear of thee those heroic monarchs have joined together with Karna and made an alliance with Dhritarashtra's sons. Reckless of their very lives, all those warriors have united with Duryodhana and are filled with delight at the prospect of fighting the Pandavas. O hero of Dasara's race, it doth not commend itself to me that thou shouldst enter into their midst. How, O grinder of foes, wilt thou repair into the midst of those numerous enemies of thine, of wicked souls, and seated together? O thou of mighty arms, thou art, indeed, incapable of being vanquished by the very gods, and I know, O slayer of foes, thy manliness and intelligence. O Madhava, the love I bear to thee is equal to that I bear to the sons of Pandu. I say, therefore, these words to thee from my affection, regard, and friendship for thee. What need is there in expressing to thee the delight that has been mine at sight of thy persons, for thou, O thou of eyes like lotus, art the inner soul of all embodied creatures. Mahabharata, Book 5, Section 93. The Holy One said, that, indeed, which should be said by a person of great wisdom, that, indeed, which should be said by one possessed of great foresight, that indeed, which should be said by one like thee to a friend like me, that indeed, which is deserving of thee, being consistent with virtue and profit and truth, that, O Vidura, hath been said by thee, father and mother like, unto me. That which thou hast told me is certainly true, worthy of approbation and consistent with reason. Listen, however, with attention, O Vidura, to the reason of my coming. Well knowing the wickedness of Dhritarashtra's son and the hostility of the Kshatriyas that have sided with him, I have still, O Vidura, come to the Kurus. Great will be the merit earned by him who will liberate from the meshes of death the whole earth, with her elephants, cars, and steeds, overwhelmed with a dreadful calamity. If a man striving to the best of his abilities to perform a virtuous act meets with failure, I have not the least doubt that the merit of that act becomes his, notwithstanding such failure. This also is known to those that are conversant with religion and scripture, that if a person having intended mentally to commit a sinful act does not actually commit it, the demerit of that act can never be his. I will sincerely endeavor, O Vidura, to bring about peace between the Kurus and the Srinjayas who are about to be slaughtered in battle. That terrible calamity, which hangs over them all, hath its origin in the conduct of the Kurus, for it is directly due to the action of Duryodhana and Karna, the other Kshatriyas only following the lead of these two. The learned regard him to be a wretch who doth not by his solicitation seek to save a friend who is about to sink in calamity. Striving to the best of his might, even to the extent of seizing him by the hair, one should seek to dissuade a friend from an improper act. In that case, he that acteth so, instead of incurring blame, reapeth praise. It behoveth Dhritarashtra's son, therefore, O Vidura, with his counselors, to accept my good and beneficial counsels that are consistent with virtue and profit and competent to dispel the present calamity. I will, therefore, sincerely endeavor to bring about the good of Dhritarashtra's sons and of the Pandavas, as also of all the Kshatriyas on the face of the earth. If while endeavoring to bring about the good of my friends, Duryodhana judgeth me wrongly, I shall have the satisfaction of my own conscience, and a true friend is one who assumeth the functions of an intercessor when dissensions break out between kinsmen. In order, again, that unrighteous, foolish, and inimical persons may not afterwards say that though competent, still Krishna did not make any attempt to restrain the angry Kurus and the Pandavas from slaughtering one another, I have come here. Indeed, it is to serve both parties that I have come hither. Having striven to bring about peace, I will escape the censure of all the kings. If after listening to my auspicious words, fraught with virtue and profit, the foolish Duryodhana accept them not, he will only invite his fate. If without sacrificing the interests of the Pandavas I can bring about peace among the Kurus, my conduct will be regarded as highly meritorious, O high-souled one, and the Kauravas themselves will be liberated from the meshes of death. If the sons of Dhritarashtra reflect coolly on the words, I shall utter words fraught with wisdom, consistent with righteousness, and possessed of grave import, then that peace which is my object will be brought about, and the Kauravas will also worship me as the agent thereof. If, on the other hand, they seek to injure me, I tell thee that all the kings of the earth, united together, are no match for me, like a herd of deer incapable of standing before an enraged lion. Vyasa continued, having said these words, that bull of the Vrishni race and delighter of Yadavas, then laid himself down on his soft bed for sleep. Mahabharata, Book 5, Section 94. Vyasa said, in such conversation between those two distinguished persons, both of whom were endued with great intelligence, that night, lit with bright stars, passed away. Indeed, the night passed away against the wishes of the illustrious Vidura, who had been listening to the varied conversation of Krishna fraught with virtue, profit, and desire, and made up of delightful words and syllables of agreeable import, and also those of Krishna himself, of immeasurable prowess, listening to discourses equal in style and character. Then, at early dawn, a band of choristers and bards gifted with melodious voices awoke Kesava with sweet sounds of conchs and cymbals. And rising from bed, Janardana of Dasara's race, that bull amongst all the Satwatas, went through all the customary acts of the morning. And having cleansed himself by a bath, recited the sacred mantras and poured libations of clarified butter on the sacrificial fire. Madhava decked his person and began to worship the rising sun. And while the unvanquished Krishna of Dasara's race was still engaged in his morning devotions, Duryodhana and Suvala's son Sakuni came to him and said, Dhritarashtra is seated in his court, with all the Kurus headed by Bhishma and with all the kings of the earth. They are all soliciting thy presence, O Govinda, like the celestials in heaven desiring the presence of Sakra himself. Thus addressed, Govinda greeted them both with sweet and courteous inquiries. And when the sun had risen a little higher, Janardana, that chastiser of foes, summoning a number of Brahmanas, made them presents of gold and robes and kine and steeds. And after he had thus given away much wealth and taken his seat, his driver, Daruka, came and saluted that unvanquished hero of Dasara's race. And Daruka soon returned with his master's large and blazing car furnished with rows of tinkling bells and harnessed with excellent steeds. And understanding that his handsome car, adorned with every ornament and producing a rattle, deep as the rumbling of the mighty masses of clouds, was ready, the high-souled Janardana, that delighter of all the Yadavas, walking round the sacred fire and a band of Brahmanas, and putting on the gem known by the name of Kaustubha, and blazing with beauty, surrounded by the Kurus, and well protected by the Vrishnis, mounted on it. And Vidura, conversant with all the precepts of religion, followed on his own car that scion of Dasara's race, that foremost of all living creatures, that first of all persons gifted with intelligence. And Duryodhana and Suvala's son Sakuni also, on one car followed Krishna, that chastiser of foes. And Satyaki and Kritavarman and the other mighty car warriors of the Vrishni race all rode behind Krishna on cars and steeds and elephants. And, O king, the handsome cars of those heroes, adorned with gold and drawn by excellent steeds, and each producing a loud rattle, as they moved forward, shone brilliantly. And Kesava, endued with great intelligence, and beaming with beauty, soon came upon a broad street that had previously been swept and watered, and that was fit to be used by the highest of kings. And when that scion of Dasara's race set out, cymbals began to play, and conchs began to be blown, and other instruments also to pour forth their music. And great number of youthful heroes, foremost in the world for heroism, and possessed of lion-like prowess, proceeded, surrounding Sori's car. And many thousands of soldiers, attired in variegated dresses, bearing swords and lances and axes, marched in advance of Kesava. And there were full 500 elephants, and cars by thousands, that followed that unvanquished hero of Dasara's race while he proceeded. And, O chastiser of foes, all the citizens of the capital, of all ages and both sexes, desirous of beholding Janardana, came out into the streets. And the terraces and balconies of the houses were so thronged by ladies that the houses were on the point of falling down with the weight. And worshipped by the Kurus, and listening to various sweet speeches, and returning the greetings of all as each deserved, Kesava went along the street, casting his eyes on all. And at last, when Kesava reached the Kuru court, his attendants loudly blew their conchs and trumpets and filled the welkin with that blare. And, thereupon, that whole assembly of kings, of immeasurable prowess, trembled with delight at the expectation of soon setting their eyes on Krishna. And hearing the rattle of his car, that rumbled like the deep roll of rain-charged clouds, the monarchs understood Krishna to be near, and the hair of their bodies stood erect with delight. And having reached the gate of the court, Sari, that bull among the Satwatas, alighting from his car, that resembled the summit of Kailasa, entered the court, which looked like a mass of newly risen clouds, and blazed forth with beauty, and resembled the very abode of the great Indra. And that illustrious hero entered the court, arm in arm with Vidura and Satyaki on either side, and overshadowing with his own the splendor of all the Kurus, like the sun overshadowing the radiance of lesser lights in the firmament. And before Vasudeva sat Karna and Duryodhana, while behind him were seated the Vrishnis with Kritavarman. And Bhishma and Drona, and others with Dhritarashtra were on the point of rising up from their seats for honoring Janardana. Indeed, as soon as he, of Dasara's race, came, the illustrious blind monarch, Drona and Bhishma, all rose up from their seats. And when that mighty ruler of men, King Dhritarashtra, rose up from his seat, those kings by thousands around him all rose up also. And at Dhritarashtra's command, a seat beautiful all over, and adorned with gold, had been kept there for Krishna, and after taking his seat, Madhava smilingly greeted the king, and Bhishma, and Drona, and all other rulers, each according to his age. And all the kings of the earth, and all the Kurus also, beholding Kesava arrived in that assembly, worshipped him duly. And as that chastiser of foes, that vanquisher of hostile cities, that hero of Dasara's race, was seated there, he beheld the rishis whom he had seen while proceeding to Hastinapur, staying in the firmament. And beholding those rishis with Narada at their head, he of Dasara's race, slowly addressed Bhishma the son of Santanu, saying, O king, the rishis have come to see this earthly conclave of ours. Invite them with offer of seats and abundant courtesy, for if they are not seated, no one here is capable of taking his seat. Let proper worship, therefore, be speedily offered unto these rishis with souls under proper control. And beholding the rishis then at the gate of the palace, Santanu's son quickly ordered the servants to bring seats for them. And soon enough they brought large and beautiful seats embroidered with gold and set with gems. And after the rishis, O Bharata, had taken their seats and accepted the aragyas offered to them, Krishna took his seat, so also all the kings. And Dasasana gave an excellent seat to Satyaki, while Vivangsati gave another golden one to Kritavarman. And not far from where Krishna sat, that illustrious and wrathful pair, Karna and Duryodhana, sat together on the same seat. And Sakuni, the king of Gandhara, surrounded by the chiefs of his country, sat there, O king, with his son beside him. And the high-souled Vidura sat on a begemmed seat covered with a white deerskin that almost touched Krishna's seat. And all the kings in the assembly, although they gazed at Janardana of Dasara's race for a long while, were not, however, gratified with their gaze, like drinkers of the Amrita, that are never satiated with quaffing measure after measure. And Janardana, attired in yellow robes having the complexion of the Atasi flower, sat in the midst of that assembly like a sapphire mounted on gold. And after Govinda had taken his seat, a perfect silence ensued, for none present there spoke a single word. Mahabharata, Book 5, Section 95. Vaisampayana said, and after all the kings had been seated and perfect silence had ensued, Krishna, possessing fine teeth and having a voice deep as that of the drum, began to speak. And Madhava, although he addressed Dhritarashtra, spoke in a voice deep as the roll of clouds in the rainy season, making the whole assembly hear. And he said, in order that, O Bharata, peace may be established between the Kurus and the Pandavas without a slaughter of the heroes, I have come hither. Besides this, O king, I have no other beneficial words to utter, O chastiser of foes, everything that should be learned in this world is already known to thee. This thy race, O king, owing to its learning and behavior, and owing also to its being adorned with every accomplishment, is most distinguished among all royal dynasties. Joy in the happiness of others, grief at sight of other people's misery, desire to alleviate distress, abstention from injury, sincerity, forgiveness, and truth, these, O Bharata, prevail amongst the Kurus. Then thy race, therefore, O king, is so noble, it would be a pity if anything improper were done by any one belonging to it, and greater pity still if it were done by thee. O chief of the Kurus, thou art the first of those that should restrain the Kurus if they behave deceitfully toward strangers or those numbering with themselves. Know, O thou of Kuru's race, that those wicked sons of thine, headed by Duryodhana, abandoning both virtue and profit, disregarding morality, and deprived of their senses by avarice, are now acting most unrighteously towards, O bull of men, their foremost of kinsmen. That terrible danger, which threatens all, hath its origin in the conduct of the Kurus. If thou becomest indifferent to it, it will then produce a universal slaughter. If, O Bharata, thou art willing, thou mayest be able to allay that danger even yet, for, O bull of Bharata's race, peace, I think, is not difficult of acquisition. The establishment of peace, O king, depends on thee and myself, O monarch. Set right thy sons, O thou of Kuru's race, and I will set the Pandavas right. Whatever be thy command, O king, it behoveth thy sons with their followers to obey it. If again they live in obedience to thee, that would be the very best they could do. If thou strivest for peace by restraining thy sons, it will be to thy profit, O king, as also to the benefit of the Pandavas. Having reflected carefully, act thou thyself, O king. Let those sons of Bharata, the Pandavas, be, O ruler of men, thy allies. Supported by the Pandavas, O king, seek thou both religion and profit. By every exertion in thy power, thou canst not have, O king, such allies as they who are such. Protected by the illustrious sons of Pandu, Indra himself at the head of the celestials will not be able to vanquish thee. How would it be possible then for mere earthly kings to withstand thy prowess? If with Bhishma, and Drona, and Kripa, and Karna, and Vivangsati, and Aswathaman, Vikarna, and Somadatta, and Valaka, and the chief of the Sindhus, and the ruler of the Kalingas, and Sudakshina, the king of the Kambojas, there were Yudhishthira, and Bhimasena, and Savyasakan, and the twins, and if Satyaki of mighty energy, and Yuyutsu, that mighty car warrior, are stationed, who is there, O bull of Bharata's race, of such misdirected intelligence that would fight these? If, O slayer of foes, thou hast both the Kurus and the Pandavas at thy back, the sovereignty of the whole world and invincibility before all foes will be thine. All the rulers of the earth, O monarch, that are either equal to thee or superior, will then seek alliance with thee. Protected on all sides by sons, grandsons, fathers, brothers, and friends, thou wilt then be able to live in exceeding happiness. Keeping these before thee and treating them with kindness as in days of yore, thou, O monarch, wilt enjoy the sovereignty of the whole earth. With these as thy supporters, and with the sons of Pandu also, thou wilt, O Bharata, be able to conquer all thy foes. Even this is thy best advantage. If, O chastiser of foes, thou art united with thy sons and kinsmen and counselors, thou wilt enjoy sovereignty of the whole earth won for thee by them. In battle, O great king, nothing but wholesale destruction is visible. Indeed, in the destruction of both the parties, what merit dost thou see? If the Pandavas are slaughtered in battle, or if thy own mighty sons fall, tell me, O bull of Bharata's race, what happiness wilt thou enjoy? All of them are brave and skilled in weapons. All of them are desirous of battle, the Pandavas as also thy sons. Oh, save them from the terrible danger that threatens them. After the battle thou wilt not behold all the Kurus or all the Pandavas, Kar warriors slain by Kar warriors, thou wilt behold the heroes of both parties reduced in numbers and strength. All the rulers of the earth, O best of kings, have been assembled together. Inflamed with wrath, they will certainly exterminate the population of the earth. Save, O king, the world. Let not the population of the earth be exterminated. O son of Kuru's race, if thou regainest thy natural disposition, the earth may continue to be peopled as now. Save, O king, these monarchs, who are all of pure descent, endued with modesty and liberality and piety, and connected with one another in bonds of relationship or alliance, from the terrible danger that threatens them. Abandoning wrath and enmity, O chastiser of foes, let these kings, embracing one another in peace, eating and drinking with one another, dressed in excellent robes and decked with garlands, and doing courtesies to one another, return to their respective homes. Let the affection thou hadst for the Pandavas be revived in thy bosom, and let it, O bull of Bharata's race, lead to the establishment of peace. Deprived of their father while they were infants, they were brought up by thee. Cherish them now as becomes thee, O bull of Bharata's race, as if they were thy own sons. It is thy duty to protect them. And especially it is so when they are distressed. O bull of Bharata's race, let not thy virtue and profit be both lost. Saluting and propitiating thee, the Pandavas have said unto thee, at thy command we have, with our followers, suffered great misery. For these 12 years have we lived in the woods, and for the 13th year have we lived incognito in an uninhabited part of the world. We broke not our pledge, firmly believing that our Father also would abide by his. That we violated not our word is well known to the Brahmin as who were with us. And as we, O bull of the Bharata race, have abided by our promise, also do thou abide by thine. Long have we suffered the greatest misery, but let us now have our share of the kingdom. Fully conversant as thou art with virtue and profit, it behoveth thee to rescue us. Knowing that our obedience is due to thee, we have quietly undergone much misery. Behave thou then unto us like a father or brother. A preceptor should behave as a preceptor towards his disciples, and as disciples we are willing to behave as such towards thee, our preceptor. Act thou, therefore, towards us as a preceptor should. If we go wrong, it is the duty of our Father to set us right. Therefore, set us on the way, and tread thou also the excellent path of righteousness. Those sons of thine, O bull of the Bharata race, have also said unto these kings assembled in the court these words, if the members of an assembly are conversant with morality, nothing improper should be permitted by them to happen. Where, in the presence of the virtuous members of an assembly, righteousness is sought to be overpowered by unrighteousness, and truth by the untruth, it is those members themselves that are vanquished and slain. When righteousness, pierced by unrighteousness, seeketh the protection of an assembly, if the arrow is not extracted, it is the members themselves that are pierced by that arrow. Indeed, in that case, righteousness slayeth the members of that assembly, like a river eating away the roots of the trees on its bank. Judge now, O bull of the Bharata race. The Pandavas, with their eyes turned towards righteousness and reflecting on everything, are maintaining a calm attitude, and what they have said is consistent with truth and virtue and justice. O ruler of men, what canst thou say unto them, but that thou art willing to give them back their kingdom? Let these rulers of earth that are sitting here say, what the answer should be. If it appears to thee that what I have said after reflecting well on virtue to be true, save all these Kshatriyas, O bull of the Bharata race, from the meshes of death. Effect peace, O chief of Bharata's race, and yield not to anger. Giving unto the Pandavas the just share of the paternal kingdom, enjoy thou then, with thy sons, O chastiser of foes, happiness and luxury, thy wishes being all crowned with success. Know that Yudhishthira always treadeth the path that is trod by the righteous. Thou knowest also, O king, what the behavior of Yudhishthira is towards thee and thy sons. Although thou hadst sought to burn him to death and hadst exiled him from human habitation, yet he came back and once more reposed confidence in thee. Again, didst thou with thy sons banish him to Indraprastha? While there, he brought all the kings of the earth to subjection and yet looked up to thy face, O king, without seeking to disregard thee. Although he behaved in this way, yet Suvala's son, desirous of robbing him of his dominions and wealth and possessions, applied the very efficacious means of dice. Reduced to that condition, and even beholding Krishna dragged into the assembly, Yudhishthira of immeasurable soul did not yet swerve from the duties of a Kshatriya. As regards myself, I desire, O Bharata, thy good is also theirs. For the sake of virtue, of profit, of happiness, make peace, O king, and do not allow the earth's population to be slaughtered, regarding evil as good and good as evil. Restrain thy sons, O monarch, who have from covetousness proceeded too far. As regards the sons of Pritha, they are equally ready to wait upon thee in dutiful service or to fight. That which, O chastiser of foes, seems to thee to be for thy good, do thou adopt. Vyasa continued, all the rulers of earth there present highly applauded these words of Kesava within their hearts, but none of them ventured to say anything in the presence of Duryodhana. Mahabharata, Book 5, Section 96. Vyasa said, hearing these words uttered by the high-souled Kesava, all the persons who sat in that assembly remained silent, their hair standing on their ends. And all the kings thought within themselves that there was no man who could dare reply to that speech. And seeing that all the kings sat silent, Jamadagni's son, addressing Duryodhana, then said these words in that assembly of Kurus, listen confidingly to my words illustrated by an example, and seek thy own good if my speech recommends itself to thee. There was a king of yore named Dambadbhava, who was the head of the earth. It hath been heard by us that his sovereignty extended over the whole world. And that mighty car warrior, rising every morning after the night had passed away, called the Brahmanas and the Kshatriyas unto himself and asked them, saying, be ye a Sudra, a Vaishya, a Kshatriya, or a Brahmana, is there any one who is superior or even equal to me in battle? And uttering these words, that king wandered over the earth, intoxicated with pride and thinking of nothing else. And it so happened that certain Brahmanas endued with high souls, conversant with the Vedas, and fearing nothing on earth, counseled the monarch, repeatedly boasting of his prowess, to curb his pride. But though forbidden by those Brahmanas to boast in that way, the king continued to ask the Brahmanas as before the same question day after day. And some high-souled Brahmanas then, endued with ascetic merit and acquainted with the proofs furnished by the Vedas, were inflamed with anger, and addressing that proud and boastful king intoxicated with prosperity, told him, there are two persons who are foremost of all men and who are always victorious in battle. Thou, O king, wilt by no means be equal to them if thou seekest an encounter with any one of them. And thus addressed by them, the king asked those Brahmanas, saying, where may those two heroes be found? In what race are they born? What feats have they achieved? And who are they? And the Brahmanas answered him, saying, it had been heard by us that those two persons are ascetics called Nara and Narayana. They have both taken their births in the race of man. Go and fight with them, O king. It is that illustrious pair, Nara and Narayana, who are now practicing the severest of penances in some hidden region of the mountains of Gandhamadana. Hearing those words of the Brahmanas, that king speedily mustered his large army consisting of 6 kinds of forces, and unable to bear their reputation, marched to the spot where those unvanquished ascetics were, and arrived at the rugged and frightful mountains of Gandhamadana. He began to search after those rishis, and at last came upon them concealed within the woods. And beholding those 2 best of persons emaciated with hunger and thirst, their veins swollen and visible, and themselves much afflicted with cold winds, and the hot rays of the sun, he approached them, and touching their feet, inquired after their welfare. And the 2 rishis received the king hospitably, with fruits and roots, and a seat and water. And they then inquired after the king's business, saying, Let it be done. And thus addressed by them, the king said unto them the same words that he was in the habit of saying unto all. And he said, The whole earth has been conquered by the might of my arms. All my foes have been slain. Desiring a battle with you both, I have come to this mountain. Offer me this hospitality. I have been cherishing this wish from a long time. Thus addressed, Nara and Narayana said, O best of kings, wrath and covetousness have no place in this retreat. How can a battle, therefore, be possible here? There are no weapons here, and nothing of unrighteousness and malice. Seek battle elsewhere. There are many Kshatriyas on earth. Rama continued, although thus addressed, the king still pressed them for giving him battle. The rishis, however, continually soothed him and overlooked his importunity. King Dambhadbhava, still desirous of battle, repeatedly summoned those rishis to fight. Nara, then, O Bharata, taking up a handful of grass blades, said, Desirous of battle as thou art, come, O Kshatriya, and fight. Take up all thy arms, and array thy troops. I will curb thy eagerness for battle hereafter. Dambhadbhava then said, If, O ascetic, thou thinkest this weapon of thine fit to be used against us, I shall fight with thee though thou mayest use that weapon, for I have come hither desirous of fighting. Saying this, Dambhadbhava with all his troops, desirous of slaying that ascetic, covered all sides with a shower of arrows. That ascetic, however, by means of those blades of grass, baffled all those terrible shafts of the king that were capable of mangling the bodies of hostile warriors. The invincible rishi then led off towards the king his own terrible weapon made of grass blades, and which was incapable of being counteracted. And highly wonderful was that which happened, for that ascetic, incapable of missing his aim, pierced and cut off, by those grass blades alone, the eyes and ears and noses of the hostile warriors, aided also by his power of illusion. And beholding the entire welkin whitened by those grass blades, the king fell at the feet of the rishi and said, Let me be blessed. Ever inclined to grant protection unto those that sought it, Nara then, O king, said unto that monarch, Be obedient to the Brahmanas and be virtuous. Never do so again. O king, O tiger among monarchs, a conqueror of hostile towns, a Kshatriya mindful of the duties of his own or, should never, within even his heart, be as thou art. Filled with pride, never insult anybody on any occasion, be inferior or superior to thee. Even such conduct would befit thee. Acquiring wisdom, abandoning covetousness and pride, controlling thy soul, restraining thy passions, practicing forgiveness and humility, and becoming amiable, O king, go, and cherish thy subjects. Without ascertaining the strength and weakness of men, never insult any one under any circumstances. Blessed be thou, and with our leave, go hence, and never again behave in this way. At our command, inquire thou always of the Brahmanas as to what is for thy good. The king then, worshipping the feet of those 2 illustrious rishis, returned to his city, and from that time began to practice righteousness. Great indeed was that feat achieved of old by Nara. Narayana, again, became superior to Nara in consequence of many more qualities. Therefore, O king, besides such weapons as Kakudika, Sukha, Naka, Akshasantarjana, Santana, Nartana, Gora, and Asyamadaka, are placed on the string of that best of bows called Gandiva, go thou unto the Nanjaya, laying aside thy pride struck with these weapons, men always yield up their lives. Indeed, these weapons have other means corresponding with the 8 passions, such as lust, wrath, covetousness, vanity, insolence, pride, malice, and selfishness. Struck with them, men are confounded, and move about frantically deprived of their senses. Under their influence, persons always sleep heavily, cut capers, vomit, pass urine and excreta, weep, and laugh incessantly. Indeed, that Arjuna is irresistible in fight, who hath for his friend Narayana the Creator and Lord of all the worlds, fully acquainted with the course of everything. Who is there in the 3 worlds, O Bharata, who would venture to vanquish that hero the 8-bannered Jishnu, who hath no equal in battle? Countless are the virtues that reside in Partha. Janardana again is superior to him. Thou art thyself well acquainted with Dhananjaya, the son of Kunti. They that were Nara and Narayana in days of yore are now Arjuna and Kesava. Know then, O great king, who those brave and foremost of persons are. If thou believest in this and dost not mistrust me, adopt thou a virtuous resolution and make peace with the sons of Pandu. If thou regardest this as thy good, viz., that there should be no disunion in thy family, then make peace, O foremost of Bharata's race, and do not set thy heart upon battle. O thou, that are foremost of Kuru's line, the race to which thou belongest is highly regarded on earth. Let that regard continue to be paid to it. Blessed be thou, think of what conduces to thy own welfare. Footnotes 200:1 Cars, elephants, horses, infantry, vehicles other than cars, and warriors fighting from the backs of camels. Mahabharata, Book 5, Section 97. Vaisampayana said, having listened to the words of Jamadagnya, the illustrious Rishi Kanwa also said these words unto Duryodhana in that assembly of the Kurus. Kanwa said, Brahman, the grandsire of the universe, is indestructible and eternal. Those illustrious rishis, Nara and Narayana, are of the same character. Of all the sons of Aditi, Vishnu alone is eternal. He alone is unconquerable and indestructible, existing forever, the Lord of all, and the possessor of divine attributes. All others, such as the sun and the moon, earth and water, wind, fire and firmament, planets, and stars, are liable to destruction. All these, when the end of the universe cometh, take leave of the 3 worlds. They are destroyed and created again and again. Others also, such as men and animals and birds, and creatures belonging to other orders of living existence, indeed, all that move on this world of men, are endued with short lives. And as regards kings, all of them, having enjoyed great prosperity, reach, at last, the hour of destruction and are reborn in order to enjoy the fruits of good and evil deeds. It behoveth thee then to make peace with Yudhishthira. Let the Pandavas and the Kauravas both rule this earth. O Suryodhana, one should not think in this way, viz., I am strong, for O bull among men, it is seen that there are persons stronger than those generally regarded strong. O son of Kuru's race, physical strength is scarcely regarded as strength by those that are really strong. As regards the Pandavas, endued as they all are with prowess equal to that of the celestials, they are also regarded as strong. In this connection is cited an old story, as an example, the story, viz., of Madali searching for a bridegroom upon whom to bestow his daughter. The king of the 3 worlds, Indra, had a charioteer named Madali, whom he dearly loved. Unto him was born a daughter celebrated over the world for beauty. Endued with the celestial beauty, that daughter of Madali was known by the name of Ganakesi. And, indeed, in both loveliness and symmetry of bodily figure, she far excelled other members of her sex. Knowing that the time for giving her way had come, Madali with his wife became very anxious, thinking, O monarch, of what he was to do next. And he thought within himself, Alas, the birth of a daughter in the families of those that are well-behaved and high-born and possess reputation and humility of character is always attended with evil results. Daughters, when born in respectable families, always endanger the honor of three families, viz., their maternal and paternal families and the family into which they are adopted by marriage. Glancing in my mind's eye the worlds of gods and men, I have searched both, but no eligible bridegroom have I found. Kanwa continued, and it so happened that amongst the gods, the Daityas and Gandharvas, men and numerous rishis, none was regarded by Madali as an eligible husband for his daughter. And having held a consultation then in the night with his wife Siddharma, Madali set his heart upon making a journey to the world of the Nagas. And he thought within himself, Amongst both gods and men I have not found a husband fit, in respect of beauty, for my Ganakesi. Surely one may be found amongst the Nagas. And saying this, he took his wife's leave, and sniffing the head of his daughter, Madali entered the nether regions. Mahabharata, Book 5, Section 98. Kanwa said, when Madali was wending his way, he saw the great Rishi Narada proceeding at his pleasure to pay a visit to Varuna, the god of the waters. And beholding Madali, Narada asked him, saying, Whither dost thou go? Is it, O charioteer, on any mission of thy own, or is it at Satakrata's command that this journey of thine is undertaken? Thus addressed on the way by Narada, who was proceeding towards his destination, Madali duly informed Narada of his mission. And the Rishi, informed of everything, then said unto Madali, We shall go together. As regards myself, it is to see the Lord of the waters that I am proceeding. Having left the heavens, searching the nether regions, I shall tell you everything. After a good search there, we shall select a bridegroom, O Madali. And penetrating then into nether regions, that illustrious couple, Madali and Narada, beheld that regent of the world, the Lord of the waters. And then Narada received worship due to a celestial rishi, and Madali received that equal to what is offered to the great Indra. And both of them skillful in business, informed Varuna of their purpose, and obtaining his leave they began to wander in that region of the Nagas. And Narada, who knew all the residents of the nether regions, then began to describe in detail unto his companion all about the dwellers of the Naga world. And Narada said, Thou hast, O charioteer, seen Varuna surrounded by his sons and grandsons. Behold the dominions of the Lord of the waters. It is delightful all round, and full of riches. The son, endued with great wisdom, of Varuna, the Lord of the ocean, is even much distinguished for his conduct and disposition and for his holiness. Possessed of eyes like lotus leaves, this Pushkara is, indeed, Varuna's much-loved son, endued with great beauty and delightful to behold. He has been chosen by Soma's daughter as her husband. That daughter of Soma, equal in beauty unto a second Shri, is known by the name of Jayatsnakali. Indeed, it is said that she had once before chosen the eldest and foremost of Aditi's son as her lord. Behold now, O companion of the Lord of the Celestials, that abode, made entirely of gold, and full of the wine called Varuni. Indeed, having obtained that wine, the gods acquired their godheads. These blazing weapons also of every kind that thou sayest, belonged, O Madali, to the Daityas who have been deprived of their sovereignty. These weapons are incapable of deterioration, and when hurled at the foe always return into the hand that hurleth them. Obtained by the gods as the booty of war, they require considerable mental energy to be used against foes. Here dwelt in days of yore many tribes of Rakshasas and Daityas, possessed of many kinds of celestial weapons, but they were all vanquished by the gods. Behold, there, in Varuna's lake, is that fire of blazing flames, and that discus of Vishnu surrounded by the lustrous splendor of mighty caloric. Behold, there leath that knotty bough that was created for the destruction of the world. It is always protected with great vigilance by the gods, and it is from this bough that the one wielded by Arjuna hath taken its name. Endued with the strength of 100,000 bows, the power it assumes at the hour of battle is indescribably great. It punishes all punishable wicked kings endued with the nature of Rakshasas. This fierce weapon was first created by Brahman, the utterer of the Vedas. The great preceptor Sukra hath said that this weapon is a terrible one in respect of all kings. Endued with great energy, it is held by the sons of the Lord of Waters. Behold, there in the umbrella room is the umbrella of the Lord of the Waters. It droppeth refreshing showers like the clouds. The water dropped from this umbrella, though pure as the moon, is yet enveloped by such darkness that it cannot be seen by anybody. There, in these regions, O Madali, innumerable are the wonders to be seen. Your business, however, will suffer if we spend more time here. We will, therefore, leave this region soon. Mahabharata, Book 5, Section 99. Narada continued, here in the very center of the world of the Nagas is situated the city known by the name of Padalam. Celebrated over all the universe, it is worshipped by the Daityas and the Danavas. Creatures inhabiting the earth, if brought hither by force of the water's current, shriek loudly, afflicted with fear. Here the fire known by the name of the Azura fire, and which is fed by water, continually blazeth forth. Held fast by the flat of the celestials, it moveth not, regarding itself as bound and confined. It was here that the gods, having first vanquished and slain their foes, quaffed the Amrita and deposited the residue. It is from this place that the waning and waxing of the moon are seen. It is here that son of Aditi, the horse-headed Vishnu, on the recurrence of every auspicious occasion, riseth, filling at such times the universe, otherwise called Savarna, with the sound of Vedic hymns and mantras. And because all watery forms such as the moon and others shower their water on the region, therefore hath this excellent region been called Padala. It is from here that the celestial elephant Airavata, for the benefit of the universe, taketh up cool water in order to impart it to the clouds, and it is that water which Indra poureth down as rain. Here dwell diverse kinds of aquatic animals, of various shapes such as the timi and others, which subsist on the rays of the moon. O charioteer, here are many kinds of creatures that die during the day, being pierced by the rays of the sun, but all of whom revive in the night, the reason being that the moon, rising here every day, laying those deceased creatures with Amrita by means of rays that constitute his arms, resuscitate them by that touch. Deprived of their prosperity by Vasva, it is here that many sinful Danavas live confined, defeated by him and afflicted by time. It was here that the Lord of creatures, that great master of all created things Mahadeva, had practiced the severest of ascetic austerities for the benefit of all creatures. Here dwell many regenerate and great rishis observant of vows called Go, and emaciated with the recitation and study of the Vedas, and who, having suspended the vital air called prana, have attained to heaven by force of their austerities. A man is said to adopt the vow called Go, when he sleepeth wherever he listeth, and when he subsisteth on anything that others place before him, and is clad with robes that others may supply. Here in the race of the celebrated elephant Supratika were born those best of elephants known by the names of Airavata, Vamana, Kumuda, and Anjana, the first being the king of his tribe. Look, O Madali, if there be any bridegroom here, that is distinguished by the possession of superior merits, for then I will go to him for respectfully soliciting him to accept thy daughter. Behold, here lieth an egg in these waters, blazing with beauty. From the commencement of the creation it is here. It moveth not, nor doth it burst. I have never heard anybody speaking of its birth or nature. Nobody knoweth who its father or mother is. It is said, O Madali, that when the end of the world cometh, mighty fire burst forth from within it, and spreading consumeth the three worlds with all their mobile and immobile objects. Hearing those words of Narada, Madali answered him, saying, No one here seems to me to be eligible. Let us go hence, therefore, without delay. Footnotes 205:1 called also the Badava fire. 205:2 The allusion is to the incarnation of Vishnu as the horse-necked. Nilkantha explains Suvarnakiam Jagat to be Veda Prancha, i.e., the whole Vedas with all their contents. According to him, the sense of the passage is that Vishnu in that form swells with his own voice the Vedic notes chanted by the Brahmanas. 205:3 Patati Jalam Sravantiti Padalam. Thus Nilkantha. Mahabharata, Book 5, Section 100. Narada continued, Here is that spacious and celebrated city of cities, called Hiranyapura, belonging to the Daityas and Danavas, possessing 100 diverse kinds of illusion. Here in these regions called Padala, it hath been built with great care by the divine artificer, and planned by the Danava Maya. Endued with great energy and heroism, many Danavas, having obtained boons from Brahman in days of old, lived here, exhibiting 1,000 different kinds of illusion. They were incapable of being vanquished by Sakra or any other celestial, that is, by either Yama or Varuna or the Lord of Treasures, Kuvara. Here dwell, O Madali, those Asuras called Kalakanjas who sprang from Vishnu, and those Rakshasas also called Yadadanas who sprang from the feet of Brahman. All of them are endued with frightful teeth, terrible impetus, the speed and prowess of the wind, and great energy depending on powers of illusion. Besides these, another class of Danavas called Nivedakavachas, who are invincible in battle, have their abode here. Thou knowest Bausakra is unable to vanquish them. Many times, O Madali, thou, with thy son Gamukha, and the chief of the celestials and lord of Sachi, along with his son, had to retreat before them. Behold their homes, O Madali, that are all made of silver and gold, and well adorned with decorations done according to the rules of art. All those mansions are decked with lapis lazuli and corals, and made effulgent with the luster of the Archasphatico, and the radiance of gem called Vajrasara. And many of those palatial residences seem, as if, they have been made of the shine of these gems called Padmaragas, or of bright marble, or of excellent wood. And they are also possessed of the radiance of the sun, or blazing fire. And all the edifices, adorned with gems and jewels, are very high and stand close to another. Of spacious proportions and great architectural beauty, it is impossible to say of what material these mansions are built or to describe their style of beauty. Indeed, they are exceedingly beautiful in consequence of their decorations. Behold these retreats of the Daityas for recreation and sport, these beds of theirs for sleep, these costly utensils of theirs set with precious stones, and these seats also for their use. Behold these hills of theirs, looking like clouds, those fountains of water, these trees also that move of their own will and that yield all fruits and flowers that one may ask. See, O Madali, if any bridegroom may be had here, acceptable to thee. If no one can be found, we shalt, if thou likest, go hence to some other part of the world. Thus addressed, Madali answered Narada, saying, O celestial Rishi, it behoveth me not to do anything that may be disagreeable to dwellers of heaven. The gods and the Danavas, though brothers, are ever at hostility with each other. How can I, therefore, make an alliance with those that are our enemies? Let us repair, therefore, to some other place. It behoveth me not to search among the Danavas. As regards thyself, I know thy heart is ever set on fomenting quarrels. Mahabharata, Book 5, Section 101. Narada said, This region belongeth to the birds, all of whom possess excellent feathers. They all subsist on snakes. They never feel any fatigue in putting forth their prowess, or in making journeys, or in bearing burthens. This race, O charioteer, hath multiplied from the 6 sons of Garuda. They are Sumukha, Sunaman, Sunetra, Suvrachas, Swanch, and that prince of birds called Suvala. Born of Kasyapa's line and enhancing the glory of Vinata's race, many winged creatures, the foremost of their species, have by begetting children founded and increased 1,000 dynasties of birds, all endued with nobility of blood. All these creatures are endued with great prosperity, have the auspicious world called Sriyavatsa, possess great wealth, and are inspired with great might. By their acts they may be said to belong to the Kshatriya order, but they are all without any compassion, subsisting as they do on snakes. They never attain to spiritual enlightenment in consequence of their preying on their kinsmen. I will now enumerate the chiefs by their names. Listen to me, O Madali. This race is much regarded in consequence of the favor that is shown to it by Vishnu. They all worship Vishnu, and Vishnu is their protector. Vishnu always dwelleth in their hearts, and Vishnu is their great refuge. These then are their names: Suvarnakuta, Nagasindaruna, Shandatundaka, Anala, Vaisalaksha, Kundalan, Pankajit, Vajraviskamba, Venatiya, Vamana, Vadavega, Disachakshu, Nimisha, Animisha, Trirava, Saptarava, Valmiki, Dipaka, Dadyadwipa, Saradwipa, Sarasa, Padmakatana, Sumukha, Chitraketu, Chitravara, Anaga, Mesharit, Kumuda, Deksha, Sarpanta, Somabhajana, Gurubara, Kapota, Suryanetra, Kirantaka, Vishnadharman, Kamara, Paravara, Hari, Saswara, Madhuparka, Himavarna, Malaya, Madariswan, Nisakara, and Divakara. These sons of Garuda that I named dwell in only a single province of this region. I have mentioned those only that have won distinction by might, fame, and achievements. If thou likest none here, come, we will go hence, O Madali. I will take thee to another region where thou mayest find an eligible husband for thy daughter. Mahabharata, Book 5, Section 102. Narada said, The region where we now are is called Rasatala, and is the 7th stratum below the earth. Here dwelleth Surabi, the mother of all kind, she who was born of the Amrita. She always yieldeth milk, which is the essence of all the best things of the earth, and which, excellent as it is, and of one taste, springeth from the essence of the 6 different kinds of tastes that are talked of. The faultless Surabi herself sprang in days of old from the mouth of the grandsire, gratified with drinking the Amrita and vomiting the best things. A single jet only of her milk, falling on the earth, created what is known as the sacred and the excellent milky ocean. The verge of that ocean all round is always covered with white foam resembling a belt of flowers. Those best of ascetics that are known by the name of the foam drinkers dwell around this ocean, subsisting on that foam only. They are called foam drinkers because they live, O Madali, on nothing else save that foam. Engaged in the practice of the severest of austerities, the very gods are known to fear them. From her are born 4 other kind, O Madali, supporting the 4 quarters, and therefore are they called the supporters of the quarters, Dikpali. Born of Surabhi herself, she who supporteth the eastern quarter is called Sarupa. She who supporteth the southern quarter is called Hansika. That illustrious cow, O Madali, of universal form, who supporteth the western quarter ruled by Varuna, is known by the name of Subhadra. The northern quarter, comprising the region of virtue, and called after Kuver the Lord of Treasures, is supported by the cow named Sarvakamaduga. The gods, uniting with the Asuras, and making the Mandara mountain their pole, churned the waters of the ocean and obtained the wine called Varuni, and the goddess of prosperity and grace called Lakshmi, and Amrita, and that prince of steeds called Achaisrava, and that best of gems called Kaustubha. Those waters, O Madali, that yielded these precious things had all been mixed with the milk of these Tur cows. As regards Surabhi, the milk she yielded becometh Svaha unto those that live on Svaha, Svadha unto those that live on Svadha, and Amrita unto those that live on Amrita. The couplet that was sung by the dwellers of Rasatala in day of old is still heard to be recited in the world by the persons of learning. That couplet is this: neither in the region of the Nagas, nor in Swarga, nor in Vimana, nor in Tripishtapa is residence so happy as in Rasatala. Mahabharata, Book 5, Section 103. Narada said, this foremost of cities that thou beholdest, and which resembles the Amravati of the chief of the celestials himself, is known by the name of Bhagavati. It is ruled over by Vasuki, the king of the Nagas. That Shisha dwelleth here, who, in consequence of his ascetic austerities of the foremost order, is able to support this earth with all her vastness. His body is like that of a white mountain. He is decked in celestial ornaments. He hath 1,000 heads. His tongues are blazing like flames of fire, and he is endued with great strength. There dwell in happiness innumerable Naga sons of Sarasa possessed of diverse forms, and decked on ornaments of diverse kinds, bearing the signs of gems, swastika, circles, and drinking vessels. All of them endued with great strength are by nature fierce. Some have 1,000 heads, some 500, and some 3. And some have 2 heads, and some 5, and some have 7 faces. And all of them are possessed of huge bodies that resemble the mountains stretching over the earth. Millions and tens of millions are they, in fact, uncountable, even as regards those of them that belong to a single race. Listen, however, to me as I name a few of the more famous ones amongst them. They are Vasuki, Takshaka, Karkataka, Denjaya, Kaliya, Nahusha, Aswatara, Vakyakunda, Mani, Apurana, Kaga, Vamana, Elapatra, Kakara, Kukuna, Aryaka, Nandaka, Kalesa, Pataka, Kalalasaka, Pinjaraka, Aravata, Sumanmuka, Dadamuka, Sanka, Nanda, Upanandaka, Apta, Kodaraka, Siki, Nishtaraka, Titiri, Hastibhadra, Kumuda, Melapindaka, the 2 Padmas, Pundarika, Pushpa, Mudgaraparnika, Karavira, Pitharaka, Samvrita, Vrita, Pindara, Vilwapatra, Mashikata, Sirishaka, Dilapa, Sankasarsha, Jayadishka, Aprajita, Kauravya, Dhritarashtra, Kuhara, Krisaka, Virajas, Dharana, Savahu, Mukara, Jaya, Vidara, Anda, Visundi, Virasa, and Sarasa. These and many others there are amongst the sons of Kasyapa. See, O Madali, if there is anybody here whom thou canst elect. Kanwa continued. Madali, meanwhile, had been looking attentively at a person that stood by. And after Narada had ceased speaking, the celestial charioteer with gratified mind asked the rishi, saying, of what race is he the delight of that comely youth of great radiance who standeth before Aryaka of Kauravya's line? Who is his father, and who is his mother? Of what Naga's race is he? Indeed, of what line doth he stand as a high flagstaff? In consequence of his intelligence, his patience, his beauty, and his youth, my heart, O celestial Rishi, hath been attracted towards him. That youth will make the best of husbands for my Ganakesi. Kenwa continued, beholding Matali's gratification at seeing the Naga called Sumukha, Narada informed him of the nobility of his parentage and of his feats. And he said, born in the race of Airavata, this prince of Nagas is named Sumukha. He is the favorite grandson of Aryaka, and the daughter's son of Vamana. The father of this youth was, O Madali, the Naga called Chakura. Not long before was he slain by Vanada's son. Hearing this, Madali became highly pleased, and addressing Narada, the charioteer said, this best of Nagas is, O sire, very acceptable to me for a son-in-law. Make an endeavor to secure him, for I am highly pleased at the thought of bestowing on this Naga, O Muni, my dear daughter. Mahabharata, Book 5, Section 104. Narada then said, this one is the charioteer of the name of Madali. He is besides a dear friend of Sakra. Pure in conduct, he hath an excellent disposition and possesses numerous virtues. Endued with strength of mind, he hath great energy and great might. He is the friend, counselor, and charioteer of Sakra. It has been seen in every battle that small is the difference that exists between him and Vasva as regards prowess and strength. In all the battles between the gods and Asuras, it is this Madali that driveth, by his mind alone, that ever victorious and best of cars belonging to Indra, which is drawn by 1,000 steeds. Vanquished by his management of the steeds, the enemies of the gods are subjugated by Vasva by the use of his hands. Defeated beforehand by Madali, the Asuras are subsequently slain by Indra. Madali hath an excellent daughter, who in beauty is unrivaled in the world. Truthful and possessed of every accomplishment, she is known by the name of Ganakesi. He was searching the 3 worlds for an eligible bridegroom. O thou that art possessed of the splendor of a celestial, thy grandson, Sumukha, hath become acceptable to him as a husband for his daughter. If, O best of serpents, his proposal be acceptable to thee, quickly make up thy mind, O Aryaka, to take his daughter in gift for thy grandson. As Lakshmi in Vishnu's house, or Svaha in that of Agni, so let the slender-waisted Ganakesi be a wife in thy race. Let Ganakesi, therefore, be accepted by thee for thy grandson, like Sachi for Vasva who deserveth her. Although this youth hath lost his father, yet we choose him for his virtues, and for the respectability of Airavata and thy own. Indeed, it is in consequence of Sumukha's merits, his disposition, purity, self-restraint, and other qualifications that Madali hath become himself desirous of giving away his daughter unto him. It behoveth thee, therefore, to honor Madali. Kenwa continued, thus addressed by Narada, Aryaka, beholding his grandson elected as a bridegroom and remembering the death of his son, was filled with delight and sorrow at the same time. And he then addressed Narada and said, how, O celestial Rishi, can I desire Ganakesi for a daughter-in-law? It cannot be, O great Rishi, that thy words are not highly honored by me, for who is there that would not desire an alliance with the friend of Indra? I hesitate, however, O great Muni, in consequence of the instability of the very cause that would not make that alliance lasting. O thou of great effulgence, the author of this youth, viz., my son, hath been devoured by Garuda. We are afflicted with sorrow on that account. But worse still, O Lord, Vanada's son, at the time of leaving these regions, said, after a month I will devour this Sumukha also. Surely, it will happen as he hath said, for we know with whom we have to deal. At these words, therefore, of Suparna we have become cheerless. Kenwa continued, Madali then said unto Aryaka, I have formed a plan. This thy grandson is elected by me as my son-in-law. Let this Naga then, proceeding with me and Narada, come to the Lord of Heaven, the chief of the celestials, O best of Nagas. I shall then endeavor to place obstacles in the way of Suparna, and as a last resource, we will ascertain the period of life that hath been vouchsafed to Sumukha. Blessed be thou, O Naga. Let Sumukha, therefore, come with me to the presence of the Lord of the celestials. Saying this, they took Sumukha with them, and all the four, endued with great splendor, coming to heaven, beheld Sakra, the chief of the gods, seated in all his glory. And it so happened that the illustrious Vishnu of 4 arms was also present there. Narada then represented the whole story about Madali and his choice. Kenwa continued, hearing all that Narada said, Vishnu directed Purandara, the Lord of the universe, saying, Let Amrita be given to this youth, and let him be made immortal like gods themselves. Let Madali, and Narada, and Sumukha, O Vasva, all attain their cherished wish through thy grace. Purandara, however, reflecting on the prowess of Vinata's son, said unto Vishnu, Let Amrita be given unto him by thee. Thus addressed, Vishnu said, Thou art the Lord of all mobile and immobile creatures. Who is there, O Lord, that would refuse a gift that may be made by thee? At these words Sakra gave unto that Naga length of days. The slayer of Vala and Vritra did not make him a drinker of Amrita. Sumukha, having obtained that boon, became Sumukha in reality, for his face was suffused with marks of joy. And having married Matali's daughter, he cheerfully returned home. And Narada and Aryaka, also filled with delight at the success of their object, went away, after having worshipped the glorious chief of the celestials. Footnotes 212:1 literally, one that hath a beautiful or excellent face. Mahabharata, Book 5, Section 105. Kenwa said, Meanwhile, O Bharata, the mighty Garuda heard what had happened, viz., the bestowal by Sakra of length of days on the Naga Sumukha. And inflamed with great anger, that ranger of the firmament, Suparna, smiting the 3 worlds by the hurricane caused by the flappings of his wings, quickly came to Vasva. And Garuda said, O illustrious one, disregarding me, why hast thou interfered with my sustenance? Having granted me a boon of thy own will, why dost thou now withdraw it? The Supreme Lord of all creatures hath, from the beginning, ordained what my food is to be. Why dost thou then stand in the way of that divine decree? I had selected this great Naga and had fixed time, for, O God, I had intended to offer the meat of his body as sustenance to my numerous progeny. When he, therefore, hath obtained a boon from thee and hath become indestructible by me, how can I henceforth dare kill another of his species? Dost thou sport thus, O Vasva, as thou listest? I, however, shall have to die, as also the members of my family and the servants whom I have engaged in my house. That will, I think, gratify thee, O Vasva. Indeed, O slayer of Vala and Vritra, I deserve all this, nay more, since being the lord of the 3 worlds and might, I yet consented to become the servant of another. O monarch of the 3 worlds, Vishnu, however, is not the only cause of my inferiority, for though, O Vasva, I am quite thy equal, yet the sovereignty of the 3 worlds resteth on thee, O chief of the celestials. Like thee, I also have a daughter of Deksha for my mother and Kasyapa for my father. Like thee, I also can, without any fatigue, bear the weight of the 3 worlds. I have strength that is immeasurable and incapable of being resisted by any creature. In the war with the Daityas, I also achieved grand feats. Srutasri and Srutasena and Vivasvat and Rakanamukha and Prasrura and Kalakaksha amongst the sons of Dithi were slain by me. Perching yet on the flagstaff of thy younger brother's car, I carefully protect it in battle, and sometimes also I bear that brother of thine on my back. It is, perhaps, for this that thou disregardest me. Who else in the universe is there that is capable of bearing such heavy burthens? Who is there that is stronger than myself? Superior though I am, I yet bear on my back this younger brother of thine with all his friends. When, however, disregarding me thou hast interfered with my foods, thou hast, O Vasva, inflicted disgrace on me, like this younger brother of thine that had hitherto been disgracing me by making me bear him on my back. As regards thyself, O Vishnu, amongst all those endued with prowess and strength that have been born of Aditi's womb, thou art superior in strength. Yet thee I bear without any fatigue, with only one of my feathers. Think coolly then, O brother, who amongst us is stronger? Kenwa continued, hearing the proud words of that bird foreshadowing danger. The bearer of the discus, provoking Tarkshiya still more, said unto him, Though so very weak, why dost thou, O Garuda, yet regard thyself strong? O oviparous creature, it ill behoveth thee to vaunt thus in our presence. The three worlds united together cannot bear the weight of my body. I myself bear my own weight and thine also. Come now, bear thou the weight of this one right arm of mine. If thou canst bear even this, thy boast would be regarded as reasonable. Saying this, the Holy One placed his arms on Garuda's shoulders. Thereupon the latter fell down, afflicted with its weight, confounded, and deprived of his senses. And Garuda felt that the weight of that one arm of Vishnu was as great as that of the entire earth with her mountains. Endued with might infinitely greater, Vishnu, however, did not afflict him much. Indeed, Achyuta did not take his life. That ranger of the sky, afflicted then by that immense weight, gasped for breath, and began to cast off his feathers. With every limb weakened, and utterly confounded, Garuda was almost deprived of his senses. The winged offspring of Vinata then, thus confounded and almost deprived of his senses, and rendered utterly helpless, bowing unto Vishnu with bent bead, feebly addressed him, saying, O illustrious Lord, the essence of that strength which sustains the universe dwelleth in this body of thine. What wonder, therefore, that I should be crushed down to the earth by a single arm of thine, stretched out at thy pleasure. It behoveth thee, O divine Lord, to forgive this winged creature that perches on thy flagstaff, this fool, intoxicated with pride of strength, but now rendered utterly helpless. Thy great strength, O divine Lord, was never known to me before. It was for this that I regarded my own might to be unequaled. Thus addressed, the illustrious Vishnu became gratified, and addressing Garuda with affection, said, Let not thy behavior be such again. And saying this, Upendra threw Sumukha with the toe of his foot upon Garuda's breast. And from that time, O king, Garuda hath ever lived in friendship with that snake. It was thus, O king, that mighty and illustrious Garuda, the son of Vinata, afflicted by the might of Vishnu, was cured of his pride. Kenwa continued, In the same way, O son of Gandhari, thou livest, O son, as long as thou approachest not the heroic sons of Pandu in battle. Who is there whom Bhima, that foremost of smiters, that mighty son of Vayu and Dhananjaya, the son of Indra, cannot slay in battle? Vishnu himself, and Vayu and Dharma, and the Ashwins, these gods are thy enemies. Let alone an encounter with them, thou art not competent even to look at them on the field. Therefore, O prince, do not set thy heart upon war, let peace be made through the agency of Vasudeva. It behoveth thee to save thy race thus. This great ascetic Narada witnessed with his own eyes the incident I have related to thee, which shows the greatness of Vishnu, and know that this Krishna is that bearer of the discus and the mace. Vaisampayana continued, hearing these words of the rishi, Duryodhana contracted his eyebrows and began to breathe heavily. And casting his eyes then on Radha's son, he burst out into a loud laughter. And setting at naught those words of the rishi, that wicked wretch began to slap his thigh that resembled the trunk of an elephant. And addressing the rishi, he said, I am, O great rishi, precisely what the Creator hath made me. What is to be, must be. What also hath been ordained in my case must happen, I cannot act otherwise. What can these senseless declamations, therefore, avail? Mahabharata, Book 5, Section 106. Janamejaya said, interminably wedded to evil, blinded by avarice, addicted to wicked courses, resolved upon bringing destruction on his head, inspiring grief in the hearts of kinsmen, enhancing the woes of friends, afflicting all his well-wishers, augmenting the joys of foes, and treading the wrong path, why did not his friends seek to restrain him, and why also did not that great friend of Kuru's race, the Holy One, with tranquil soul, or the grandsire tell him anything from affection? Vaisampayana said, yes, the Holy One did speak. Bhishma also spoke what was beneficial. And Narada too said much. Listen to all that these said. Vaisampayana continued, Narada said, persons that listen to the counsels of friends are rare. Friends again are rare that offer beneficial counsels, for a friend, in need of counsel, is never there where a friend, offering counsel, is. O son of Kuru's race, I think, the word of friends ought to be listened to. Obstinacy ought to be avoided, for it is fraught with great evil. In this connection is cited an old story regarding the Kauravas having met with disgrace through obstinacy. In ancient times, in order to test Viswamitra, who was then engaged in ascetic austerities, Dharma personally came to him, having assumed the form of the rishi, Vasishtha. Thus assuming, O Bharata, the form of the one of the 7 rishis, and feigning himself hungry and desirous of eating, he came, O king, to the hermitage of Kausika. Thereupon, Viswamitra, struck with awe, began to cook charu, which was a preparation of rice and milk. And in consequence of the care he took in preparing that excellent food, he could not properly wait upon his guest. And it was not till after the guest had dined on the food offered by the other hermits that Viswamitra succeeded in approaching him with the charu he had cooked and which was still steaming. I have already dined, wait here, were the words that the Holy One said. And having said that, the Holy One went away. And thereupon, the illustrious Viswamitra, O king, waited there. And bearing that food on his head and holding it with his arms, that ascetic of rigid vow stood in his hermitage, still as a post, subsisting on air. And as he stood there, an ascetic of the name of Galava, from motives of respect and reverence and from affection and desire of doing what was agreeable, began to wait upon him. And after 100 years had passed away, Dharma, again assuming the form of Vasishtha, came to Kausika from desire of eating. And beholding the great rishi Viswamitra, who was endued with high wisdom, standing there with that food on his head, himself subsisting all the while on air, Dharma accepted that food which was still warm and fresh. And having eaten that food, the god said, gratified am I, O regenerate rishi. And saying this, he went away. And at those words of Dharma, Viswamitra divested of kshatriyahood because endued with the status of a brahmana and was filled with delight. And pleased as he was with the services and devotion of his discipline, the ascetic Galava, Viswamitra, addressed him and said, with my leave, O Galava, go whithersoever thou mayest wish. Thus commanded by his preceptor, Galava, highly pleased, said in a sweet voice unto Viswamitra of great effulgence, what final gift shall I make thee in consequence of thy services as preceptor? O giver of honors, it is in consequence of the final present that a sacrifice becometh successful. The giver of such gifts obtains emancipation. Indeed, these gifts constitute the fruit that one enjoys in heaven. They are regarded as peace and tranquility personified. What, therefore, shall I procure for my preceptor? Oh, let that be said. The illustrious Viswamitra knew that he had really been conquered by Galava by means of the latter's services, and the rishi, therefore, sought to dismiss him by repeatedly saying, "Go, go." But though repeatedly commanded by Viswamitra to go away, Galava still addressed him, saying, "What shall I give?" And seeing this obstinacy on the part of ascetic Galava, Viswamitra felt a slight rise of anger and at last said, "Give me 800 steeds, every one of which should be as white as the rays of the moon, and every one of which should have one ear black. Go now, O Galava, and tarry not." Footnotes 215:1 The story of Viswamitra's promotion to the status of a Brahmana is highly characteristic. Engaged in a dispute with the Brahmana Rishi Vasishtha, Viswamitra, who was a Kshatriya king, the son of Kusika, found, by bitter experience, that Kshatriya energy and might backed by the whole science of arms availed nothing against a Brahmana's might, for Vasishtha by his ascetic powers created myriads and myriads of fierce troops who inflicted a signal defeat on the great Kshatriya king. Baffled thus, Viswamitra retired to the breast of Himavat and paid court to Shiva. The great god appeared and Viswamitra begged him for the mastery of the whole science of weapons. The god granted his prayer. Viswamitra then came back and sought an encounter with Vasishtha, but the latter by the aid only of his Brahmanical, bamboo, stick baffled the fiercest weapons of Viswamitra, of even celestial efficacy. Humiliated and disgraced, Viswamitra set his heart on becoming a Brahmana. He gave up his kingdom and retiring into the woods with his queen began to practice the severest austerities. After the expiration of 10,000 years, the creator Brahma appeared before him and addressed him as a royal rishi. Dispirited at this, he devoted himself to still severer austerities. At last, at Dharma's command, as here referred to, the great Kshatriya king became a Brahmana. This, in the Hindu scriptures, is the sole instance of a person belonging to a lower order becoming a Brahmana by ascetic austerities. Mahabharata, Book 5, Section 107. Narada said, thus addressed by Viswamitra of great intelligence, Galava was filled with such anxiety that he could not sit or lie down or take his food. A prey to anxiety and regret, lamenting bitterly, and burning with remorse, Galava grew pale and was reduced to a skeleton. And smitten with sorrow, O Suyadana, he indulged in these lamentations, where shall I find affluent friends? Where shall I find money? Have I any savings? Where shall I find 800 steeds of lunar whiteness? What pleasure can I have in eating? What happiness can be mine in objects of enjoyment? The very love of life is extinct in me. What need have I of life? Repairing to the other shore of the great ocean, or to the furthest verge of the earth, I will relinquish my life. Of what use can life be to me? What happiness, without severe exertion, can be his who is poor, unsuccessful, deprived of all the good things of life, and burthened with debt? Death is preferable to life as regards him who, having enjoyed the wealth of friends through their friendship for himself, is unable to return their favor. The religious acts of that man lose their efficacy who, having promised to do an act, fails to perform it and is thus stained with falsehood. One that is stained by falsehood cannot have beauty, or children, or power, or influence. How, therefore, can such a one attain to a blissful state? What ungrateful man hath ever earned fame? Where, indeed, is his place, and where his happiness? An ungrateful person can never win esteem and affection. Salvation also can never be his. He that is destitute of wealth is a wretch that can scarcely be said to live. Such a wretch cannot support his kinsmen and friends. Unable to make any return for the benefits he receiveth, he certainly meeteth with destruction. Even I am that wretch, ungrateful, destitute of resources, and stained with falsehood, for having obtained my objects from my preceptor, I am unable to do his bidding. Having first endeavored to the utmost, I will lay down my life. Before this, I never craved for anything from the very gods. The deities regard me for this in sacrificial place. I will go and seek the protection of Vishnu, the divine Lord of the three worlds, of Krishna, the great refuge of all who are blessed with protection. Bowing down unto him, I desire to see that highest of all ascetics, the eternal Krishna, from whom flow all those possessions and enjoyments that are owned by both gods and asuras. And while Galava was thus lamenting, his friend Garuda, the son of Vinata, appeared in his sight. And Garuda, from desire of doing him good, cheerfully addressed him, saying, "Thou art a dear friend of mine." It is the duty of a friend, when himself in prosperity, to look to the accomplishment of the wishes of his friends. The prosperity that I have, O Brahmana, is constituted by Vasva's younger brother Vishnu. Before this, I spoke to him on thy behalf, and he hath been pleased to grant my wishes. Come now, we will go together. I will bear thee comfortably to the other shore of the ocean, or to the furthest extremity of the earth. Come, O Galava, do not tarry. Mahabharata, Book 5, Section 108. Garuda said, O Galava, commanded I have been by God, who is the cause of all knowledge. I ask thee, towards which quarter shall I first take thee to see what lie there? The eastern, the southern, the western, or the northern, towards which, O best of regenerate persons, shall I go, O Galava? That quarter towards which Surya, the illuminator of the universe, first riseth, where, at eve, the Sathyas engage in their ascetic austerities, where that intelligence, which pervades the whole universe, first springeth, where the two eyes of Dharma, as well as he himself, are stationed, where the clarified butter first poured in sacrifice subsequently flowed all around, that quarter, O best of all regenerate persons, is the gate of day and time. There the daughters of Deksha, in primeval times, gave birth to their children. There the sons of Kasyapa first multiplied. That quarter is the source of all the prosperity of the gods, for it was there that Sakra was first anointed as the king of the celestials. It was there, O regenerate Rishi, that both Indra and the gods underwent their ascetic penances. It is for this, O Brahmana, that this quarter is called Purva, the first. And because in the earliest of times this quarter was overspread by the Suras, it is for this that it is called Purva. The gods, desirous of prosperity, performed all their religious ceremonies here. It was here that the divine creator of the universe first sang the Vedas. It was here that the Gayatri was first preached by Surya unto the reciters of that sacred hymn. It was here, O best of Brahmanas, that the Yajurvedas were delivered by Surya unto Yajnavalkya. It was here that the Soma juice, sanctified by boons, was first drunk in sacrifices by Suras. It was here that the homophiers, gratified by mantras, first drank articles of cognate origin. It was here that Varuna first repaired to the nether regions, and attained to all this prosperity. It was here, O bull among the twice-born, that the birth, growth, and death of the ancient Vasishtha took place. Here first grew the 100 different branches of Om. It was here that the smoke-eating munis are the smoke of sacrificial fires. It was in that region that myriads of boars and other animals were killed by Sakra and offered as sacrificial portions unto the gods. It is here that the 1,000-rayed sun, arising, consumeth, out of ire, all those that are wicked and ungrateful among men and the Asuras. This is the gate of the three worlds. This is the path of heaven and felicity. This quarter is called Purvav, east. We will go hither, if it pleaseth thee. I shall always do what is agreeable to him who is my friend. Tell me, O Galava, if any other quarter pleaseth thee, for we will then go there. Listen now to what I say of another quarter. Footnotes 219:1 These articles of cognate origin are clarified butter, milk, and other things used as libations in sacrifices. 219:2 i.e. The subdivisions of the pranav, the mysterious mantra, which is the beginning of everything, were first promulgated here. Nilkantha supposes this to refer to the origin of the Vedas, the Upanishads, and the various branches of the Shrutis and the Smritis. Mahabharata, Book 5, Section 109. Garuda continued, in days of yore, Vivasvat, having performed a sacrifice, gave this quarter away as a present, dakshina, unto his preceptor, and it is for this that this region is known by the name of Dakshina, south. It is here that the Pitris of the three worlds have their habitation. And, O Brahmana, it is said that a class of celestials subsisting upon smoke alone also live there. Those celestials also that go by the name of Viswadevas always dwell in this region along with the Pitris. Worshipped in sacrifices in all the worlds, they are equal sharers with the Pitris. This quarter is called the second door of Yama. It is here that the periods allotted to men are calculated in trutiyas and lavas. In this region always dwell the celestial rishis, the Pitraloka rishis, and the royal rishis, in great happiness. Here are religion and truth. It is here that the acts of persons exhibit their fruits. This region, O best of the twice-born, is the goal of the acts of the dead. It is this region, O best of regenerate persons, whither all must repair. And as creatures are all overwhelmed by darkness, they cannot, therefore, come hither in bliss. Here, O bull among regenerate persons, are many thousands of malevolent Rakshasas in order to be seen by the sinful. Here, O Brahmana, in the bowers on the breast of Mandara and in the abodes of regenerate rishis, the Gandharvas chant psalms, stealing away both the heart and the intellect. It was here that Revata, Aditya, hearing the Sama hymns sung in a sweet voice, retired to the woods, leaving his wife and friends and kingdom. In this region, O Brahmana, Manu and Yavakrita's son together set a limit which Surya can never overstep. It was here that the illustrious descendant of Pulasatya, Ravana, the king of the Rakshasas, undergoing ascetic austerities, solicited the boon of immortality from the gods. It was here that the Asura, Vritra, in consequence of his wicked conduct, incurred the enmity of Sakra. It is in this region that lives of diverse forms all come and are then dissociated into their 5 constituent elements. It is in this region, O Galava, that men of wicked deeds rot and tortures. It is here that the river Vedarani flows, filled with the bodies of persons condemned to hell. Arrived here, persons attain to the extremes of happiness and misery. Reaching this region, the sun droppeth sweet waters, and thence proceeding again to the direction named after Vasishta, once more droppeth dew. It was here that I once obtained, for food, a prodigious elephant battling with an enormous tortoise. It was here that the great sage Shakradanu took his birth from Surya. That divine sage afterwards came to be known by the name of Kapila, and it was by him that the 60,000 sons of Sagara were afflicted. It was here that a class of Brahmanas named Shivas, fully mastering the Vedas, became crowned with ascetic success. Having studied all the Vedas, they at last attained eternal salvation. In this region is the city called Bhagavati that is ruled by Vasuki, by the Nagatakshaka, and also by Airavata. They that have to journey hither, after death, encounter here a thick gloom. and so thick is that gloom that it cannot be penetrated by either the sun himself or by Agni. Worthy of worship as thou art, even thou shalt have to pass this road. Tell me now if thou wishest to sojourn towards this direction. Else, I listen to an account of the western direction. Footnotes 219: 3 Small divisions of time. Mahabharata, Book 5, Section 110. Garuda said, "This quarter is the favorite one of King Varuna, the ruler of the ocean. Indeed, the Lord of the waters had his origin here, and it is hither that sovereignty leath. And since it is here that towards the day's end, Pachat, the sun dismisseth his rays, that this quarter, O best of the twice-born ones, is called the West, Paschima. For ruling over all aquatic creatures, and for the protection of the water themselves, illustrious and divine Kasyapa installed Varuna here, as the king of this region. Quaffing all the 6 juices of Varuna, the moon, the dispeller of darkness, becometh young again in the beginning of the fortnight. It was in the quarter, O Brahmana, that the Daityas were routed and bound fast by the wind god. And afflicted by a mighty tempest, and breathing hard, as they fled, they at last laid themselves down in this region to sleep, the sleep that knows no waking. Hither is that mountain called Asto, which is the cause of the evening twilight, and which, daily, receiveth the sun lovingly turning towards it. It is from this quarter that both night and sleep, issuing out at the close of day, spread themselves, as if, for robbing all living creatures of half their allotted periods of life. It was here that Sakra, beholding his stepmother, the goddess Dithi lying asleep in a state of pregnancy, cut off the fetus into 49 parts, whence sprang the 49 merits. It is towards this direction that the roots of Himavat stretch towards the eternal Mandara, sunk in the ocean. By journeying for even 1,000 years one cannot attain to the end of those roots. It is in this region that Sarabi, the mother of cows, repairing to the shores of the extensive lake, adorned with golden lotuses, poureth forth her milk. Here in the midst of the ocean is seen the headless trunk of the illustrious Swarbanu, Rahu, who is always bent upon devouring both sun and the moon. Here is heard the loud chanting of the Vedas by Suvarnasiras, who is invincible and of immeasurable energy, and whose hair is eternally green. It is in this region that the daughter of Muni Heramidas remained transfixed in the welkin in consequence of Surya's injunction couched in the word stop, stop. Here, O Galava, wind, and fire, and earth, and water are all free, both day and night, from their painful sensations. It is from this region that the sun's course begins to deviate from the straight path, and it is in this direction that all the luminous bodies, the constellations, enter the solar sphere. And having moved for 28 nights with the sun, they come out of the sun's course to move in accompaniment with the moon. It is in this region that the rivers which always feed the ocean have their sources. Here, in the abode of Varuna, are the waters of the 3 worlds. In this region is situate the abode of Anarta, the prince of snakes. And here is the unrivaled abode also of Vishnu, who is without beginning and without end. In this region is also situate the abode of the great Rishi Kasyapa, the son of Maricha. The western quarter is thus narrated to thee in course of telling thee of the different points. Tell me now, O Galava, towards which side, O best of regenerate persons, shall we go? Mahabharata, Book 5, Section 111. Garuda said, O Brahmanas, since this quarter saveth from sin, and since one attaineth to salvation here, it is for this saying, Uttarana, power, that it is called the north, Uttara. And, O Galava, because the abode of all the treasures of the north stretches in a line towards the east and the west, therefore is the north sometimes called the central region, Madhyama. And, O bull among the twice-born, in this region that is superior to all, none can live that is unamiable, or of unbridled passions, or unrighteous. Hither, in the asylum, known by the name of Vidari, eternally dwell Krishna, who is Narayana's self, and Jishnu, that most exalted of all male beings, and Brahman, the creator. Hither, on the breast of Himavat, always dwelleth Mahesvara, endued with the effulgence of the fire that blazeth up at the end of the Yuga. As Purusha, he sporteth here with Prakriti, the universal mother. Except by Nara and Narayana, he is incapable of being seen by the diverse classes of Munis, the gods with Vasva at their head, the Gandharvas, the Yakshas, and the Siddhas. Though invested with Maya, him the eternal Vishnu alone, of 1,000 heads and 1,000 legs, can behold. It was in this region that Chandramadhavs, the Mohan, was installed into the sovereignty of the entire regenerate order. It was in this region, O thou foremost of all acquainted with Brahma, that Mahadeva, first receiving her on his head, afterwards let the sacred stream, Ganga, fall from the heavens to the world of men. It was here that the goddess, Uma, underwent her ascetic austerities from her desire of obtaining Mahesvara as her lord. It was in this region that Kama, the wrath of Shiva, Himavat, and Uma, all together shone brilliantly. It was here, on the breast of Kailasa, O Galava, that Kuvara was installed on the sovereignty of the Rakshasas, the Yakshas, and the Gandharvas. It is in this region that Kuvara's gardens called Kshetrartha lie, and it is here that the asylum of the Munis called the Vaikanasas is situate. It is here, O bull among the twice-born, that the celestial stream called Mandakini and the mountain Mandara are to be seen. It is here that the gardens called Saugandikanaka are always guarded by the Rakshasas. Here are many plains covered with grassy verdure, as also the plantain forest, and those celestial trees called the Sadhanakas. It is in this region, O Galava, that the Siddhas, with souls ever under control and always sporting at will, have their fit abodes, abounding with every object of enjoyment. It is here that the 7 rishis with Arundhati may be seen. It is here that the constellation Swati is to be seen, and it is here that it first rises to the view. It is in this region that the grandsire Brahman dwelleth in the vicinity of Yajna, sacrifice embodied. It is in this quarter that the sun, the moon, and the other luminaries are seen to revolve regularly. It is in this region, O foremost of Brahmanas, that those illustrious and truth-speaking Munis called by the name of Dharma guard the source of the Ganges. The origin and physical features and ascetic penances of these Munis are not known to all. The 1,000 dishes they use for serving the food offered in hospitality and the edibles also they create at will are all a mystery. The man, O Galava, that passeth beyond the point guarded by these Munis, is certain, O foremost of Brahmanas, to meet with destruction. None else, O bull among Brahmanas, save the divine Narayana, and the eternal Nara called also Jishnu, succeeded in passing beyond the point so guarded. It is in this region that the mountains of Kailasa lie, the abode of Elavila, Kuvara. It is here that the 10 Apsaras known by the name of Vidya Prabha had their origin. And covering, O Brahmana, the 3 worlds with 3 steps in the sacrifice of Vali, the Asura king, Vishnu had covered this whole northern region, and, accordingly, there is a spot here called Vishnupada. And it is so called after the footprint of Vishnu caused on that occasion. Here, in this quarter, at a place called Usaravija, by the side of the Golden Lake, King Maruta performed, O foremost of Brahmanas, a sacrifice. It is here that the brilliant and shining gold mines of Himavat exhibit themselves to the illustrious and regenerate Rishi Jamuta. And Jamuta gave away the whole of that wealth to the Brahmanas. And having given it away, that great Rishi solicited them to call it after his own name. And hence that wealth is known by the name of the Jamuta gold. Here, in this region, O bull among Bharatas, the regents of the worlds, O Galava, every morning and evening, proclaim, what business of what person shall we do? It is for these, O foremost of Brahmanas, and other incidents, that the northern region is superior to all quarters. And because this region is superior, Uttara, to all, therefore, it is called the north, Uttara. The four regions have thus, O sire, been, one after another described to thee in details. Towards which quarter then dost thou desire to go? I am ready, O foremost of Brahmanas, to show thee all the quarters of the earth. Mahabharata, Book 5, Section 112. Galava said, O Garuda, O slayer of foremost snakes, O thou of beautiful feathers, O son of Vinata, carry me, O Tarkya, to the east where the two eyes of Dharma are first opened. O, take me to the east which thou hast first described, and whither, thou hast said, the gods are always present. Thou hast said that thither both truth and virtue reside. I desire to meet all the gods. Therefore, O younger brother of Varuna, take me thither, so that I may behold the gods. Narada continued, thus addressed, the son of Vinata replied unto that Brahmana saying, Mount thou on my back. And thereupon, the Muni Galava rode on the back of Garuda. And Galava said, Thy beauty, O devourer of snakes, as thou proceedest, seemeth to be like that of the sun himself in the morning, that maker of the day endued with 1,000 rays. And, O ranger of the skies, thy speed is so great that the very trees, broken by the storm caused by the flapping of thy wings, seem to pursue thee in the course. Thou seemest, O tenant of the welkin, to drag by the storm caused by the wings, the very earth with all the waters of her oceans, and with all her mountains, woods, and forests. Indeed, the tempest caused by the motion of thy wings seems to continually raise into mid-air the waters of the sea, with all their fishes and snakes and crocodiles. I see fishes possessed of similar faces, and timmies and timinjalas and snakes endued with human faces, all crushed by the tempest raised by thy wings. My ears are deafened by the roar of the deep. So stunned am I that I can neither hear nor see anything. Indeed, I have forgotten my own purpose. Slacken thy speed, O ranger of the sky, remembering the risk to a Brahmana's life. O sire, neither the sun, nor the cardinal points, nor the welkin itself, is any longer perceptible to me. I see only a thick gloom around me. The body is no longer visible to me. I see only thy two eyes, O oviparous being, resembling two radiant gems. I cannot see either thy body or my own. At every step, I behold sparks of fire emitted from thy frame. Stop without delay these sparks of fire and extinguish the dazzling radiance of thy eyes. O son of Vinata, slacken this exceeding speed of thy course. O devourer of snakes, I have no business to go with thee. Desist, O blessed one, I am unable to bear this speed of thine. I have promised to give my preceptor 800 white steeds of lunar effulgence, each having one ear black in hue. I see no way, O oviparous being, of fulfilling my pledge. There is but one way that I can see, and that is to lay down my own life. I have no wealth of my own, nor any wealthy friend, nor can wealth, however immense, procure the accomplishment of my object. Narada continued, unto Galava uttering these and many other words of entreaty and sorrow, the son of Vinata, without slackening his speed, laughingly replied, saying, Thou hast little wisdom, O regenerate Rishi, since thou wishest to put an end to thy own life. Death can never be brought about by one's effort. Indeed, death is God himself. Why didst thou not, before this, inform me of thy purpose? There are excellent means by which all this may be accomplished. Here is this mountain called Rishaba on the seaside. Resting here for some time and refreshing ourselves with food, I will, O Galava, return. Mahabharata, Book 5, Section 113. Narada said, alighting then on the peak of the Rishabha, the Brahmana and the bird beheld a Brahmana lady of the name of Sandili, engaged there on ascetic penances. And Galava and Garuda both saluted her by bending their heads, and worshipped her. And thereupon the lady inquired after their welfare and gave them seats. And having taken their seats, both of them took the cooked food the lady offered them, after having first dedicated it to the gods with mantras. And having taken that food, they laid themselves down on the ground and fell into a profound sleep. And Garuda, from desire of leaving that place, upon awakening, found that his wings had fallen off. Indeed, he had become like a ball of flesh, with only his head and legs. And beholding him come to that plight, Galava sorrowfully inquired, saying, What is this condition that has overtaken thee as the consequence of thy sojourn here? Alas, how long shall we have to reside here? Hadst thou harbored any evil and sinful thought in thy mind? It cannot, I am sure, be any trivial sin of which thou hast been guilty. Thus addressed, Garuda replied unto the Brahmana, saying, Indeed, O regenerate one, I entertained the thought of carrying away this lady crowned with ascetic success from this spot to where the Creator himself, the divine Mahadeva, the eternal Vishnu, and both virtue and sacrifice personified, live together, for as I thought this lady should live there. I shall now, from desire of doing myself good, prostrate myself before this holy lady, and pray unto her, saying, with a heart full of pity, I had, indeed, entertained such a thought. Whether I acted rightly or wrongly, even this was the wish, evidently against thy own, that was cherished by me from my respect for thee. It behoveth thee, therefore, to grant me forgiveness from the nobility of thy heart. That lady became gratified with that prince of birds and that bull of Brahmanas. And addressing Garuda, she said, Fear not, O thou of beautiful feathers. Resume thy wings, and cast off thy fears. I was contemned by thee, but know that I do not pardon contempt. That sinful being who entertains contempt for me would speedily fall away from all blissful regions. Without a single inauspicious indication about me, and perfectly blameless as I am, I have, in consequence of the purity of my conduct, attained to high ascetic success. Purity of conduct beareth virtue as its fruit. Purity of conduct beareth wealth as its fruit. It is purity of conduct that bringeth on prosperity. And it is purity of conduct that driveth away all inauspicious indications. Go thou, O blessed prince of birds, whithersoever thou wishest, from this place. Never entertain contempt for me, and take care that thou dost not contempt women that may even be truly blamable. Thou shalt again be, as before, invested with both strength and energy. At these words of that lady Garuda had his wings again, and they became even stronger than before. And then, with Sandili's leave, Garuda with Galava on his back took his departure. But they failed to find the kind of steeds they were in search of. And it so happened that Viswamitra met Galava on the way. And thereupon, that foremost of speakers addressed Galava in the presence of Vinata's son and said, O regenerate one, the time is already come when thou shouldst give me the wealth thou hadst promised me of thy own accord. I do not know what thou mayst. I have waited so long. I will wait for some time more. Seek thou the way by which thou mayst succeed in the matter of thy promise. Hearing these words, Garuda addressed cheerless Galava, who was overwhelmed with sorrow, saying, What Viswamitra said unto thee before hath now been repeated in my presence. Come, therefore, O Galava, best of Brahmanas, we will deliberate on the matter. Without giving thy preceptor the whole of the wealth, promised by thee, thou canst not even sit down. Mahabharata, Book 5, Section 114. Narada said, Garuda then, that foremost of winged beings, addressed the cheerless Galava and said, because it is created by Agni, in the bowels of the earth and augmented by Vayu, and because also the earth itself is said to be Hiranmaya, therefore is wealth called Hiranya. And because wealth supports the world and sustains life, therefore is it called Dana. It is for serving these ends that Dana, wealth, exists from the beginning in the three worlds. On that Friday, when either of the two constellations, the Purvabhadra or the Uttarabhadra, is ascended, Agni, creating wealth by a fiat of his will, bestoweth it on mankind for the increase of Kuvera stock. The wealth that is emboweled in the earth is guarded by the deities called the Ajakapats and the Ahivradnas, and also by Kuvera. Exceedingly difficult of attainment, that wealth, therefore, O bull among Brahmanas, is rarely attained. Without wealth there is no chance of thy acquisition of the promised steeds. Beg thou, therefore, of some king born in the race of some royal sage, who may, without oppressing his subjects, crown our suit with success. There is a king born in the lunar race, that is my friend. We shall go to him, for he, amongst all on earth, hath great wealth. That royal sage is known by the name of Yayati, and he is the son of Nahusha. His prowess is incapable of being baffled. Solicited by thee in person, and urged by me, he will give what we seek, for he hath immense wealth, equal unto what belongeth to Kuvera, the Lord of treasures. Even thus, by accepting a gift, O learned one, pay off thy debt to thy preceptor. Talking thus, and thinking upon what was best to be done, Garuda and Galava together went to King Yayati, who was then in his capital called Pradesthana. The king received them hospitably and gave them excellent aragya and water to wash their feet. And the king then asked them the cause of their advent. And thereupon Garuda answered, saying, O son of Nahusha, this ocean of asceticism, called Galava, is my friend. He had been, O monarch, a disciple of Viswamitra for many thousand years. This holy Brahmana, when commanded by Viswamitra to go away whithersoever he chose, addressed his preceptor at that time, saying, I desire to give something as preceptor's fee. Knowing this one's resources to be poor, Viswamitra did not ask for anything. But when he was repeatedly addressed by this Brahmana on the subject of the tutorial fee, the preceptor, under a slight accession of wrath, said, Give me 800 white steeds of good pedigree and of lunar radiance, and each having one ear black in hue. If, O Galava, thou desirest to give anything to thy preceptor, let this then be given. It was thus that Viswamitra, endued with wealth of asceticism, said unto him in anger, And this bull among Brahmanas is on that account smarting with great grief. Unable to fulfill that command of his preceptor, he hath now come to take thy shelter. O tiger among men, accepting this as alms from thee, and filled once more with cheerfulness, he will, after paying his preceptor's debt, devote himself again to serve ascetic penances. A royal rishi as thou art, and, therefore, endued with wealth of asceticism of thy own, this Brahmana, by giving thee a portion of his wealth of asceticism, will make thee richer in wealth of that kind. As many hairs, O Lord of men, as there are on a horse's body, so many regions of bliss, O ruler of earth, are attained by him that giveth away a horse in gift. This one is as fit to accept a gift as thou art to make a gift. Let therefore thy gift in this instance be like milk deposited in a conch shell. Mahabharata, Book 5, Section 115. Narada said, thus addressed by Suparna in excellent words fraught with truth, that performer of thousand sacrifices, that foremost of givers, that liberal ruler of all the Kasis, the Lord Yayati, revolving those words in his mind and reflecting on them coolly, and seeing before him his dear friend, Tarkshya, and that bull among Brahmanas, Galava, and regarding the alms sought as an indication, highly praiseworthy, of Galava's ascetic merit, and in view particularly of the fact that those two came to him having passed over all the kings of the solar race, said, Blessed is my life today, and the race also in which I am born hath, indeed, been blessed today. This very province also of mine hath equally been blessed by thee, O sinless Tarkshya. There is one thing, however, O friend, that I desire to say unto thee, and that is, I am not so rich now as thou thinkest, for my wealth hath suffered a great diminution. I cannot, however, O Ranger of the skies, make thy advent here a fruitless one. Nor can I venture to frustrate the hopes entertained by this regenerate Rishi. I shall, therefore, give him that which will accomplish his purpose. If one having come for alms returneth disappointed, he may consume the host's race. O son of Vinata, it is said that there is no act more sinful than that of saying, I have nothing, and thus destroying the hope of one that cometh, saying, Give. The disappointed man whose hopes have been killed and his object not accomplished can destroy the sons and grandsons of the person that faileth to do him good. Therefore, O Galava, take thou this daughter of mine, this perpetrator of 4 families. In beauty, she resembleth a daughter of the celestials. She is capable of prompting every virtue. Indeed, owing to her beauty, she is always solicited, at my hands, by gods and men, and Asuras. Let alone twice 400 steeds each with a black ear, the kings of the earth will give away their whole kingdoms as her dower. Take thou, therefore, this daughter of mine, named Madhavi. My sole desire is that I may have a daughter's son by her. Accepting that daughter in gift, Galava then, with Garuda, went away, saying, We will again see thee. And they took that maiden with them. And Galava's oviparous friend addressed him, saying, The means have at last been obtained whereby the steeds may be obtained. And saying this, Garuda went away to his own abode, having obtained Galava's permission. And after the prince of birds had gone, Galava, with that maiden in his company, began to think of going to some one among the kings who would be able to give, fit, dower for the maiden. And he first thought of that best of kings, Haryaswa of Ikshaku's race, who ruled at Ayodhya, was endued with great energy, possessed of a large army consisting of 4 kinds of forces, had a well-filled treasury and abundance of corn, and who was dearly loved by his subjects, and who loved the Brahmanas well. Desirous of offspring, he was living in quiet and peace, and engaged in excellent austerities. And the Brahmana Galava, repairing unto Haryaswa, said, This maiden, O king of kings, will increase the family of her husband by bringing forth offspring. Accept her from me, O Haryaswa, as thy wife, by giving me a dower. I will tell thee what dower thou shalt have to give. Hearing it, settle what thou shalt do. Mahabharata, Book 5, Section 116. Narada said, That best of monarchs, King Haryaswa, after reflecting for a long while and breathing a long and hot sigh about the birth of a son, at last said, Those 6 limbs that ought to be high are high in this maiden. Those 7, again, that ought to be slender are slender in her. Those 3, again, which ought to be deep are deep in her. And lastly, those 5 that ought to be red are red in her. It seems that she is worth being looked at by even the gods and the Asuras, and is accomplished in all the arts and sciences. Possessed of all auspicious signs, she will certainly bring forth many children. She is even capable of bringing forth a son who may become an emperor. Having regard to my wealth, tell me, O foremost of Brahmanas, what should be her dower? Galava said, Give me 800 steeds, born in a good country, of lunar whiteness, and each with 1 ear black in hue. This auspicious and large-eyed maiden will then become the mother of thy sons, like the fire stick becoming the genitrix of fire. Narada continued, hearing these words, that royal sage, King Haryasva, filled with sorrow, but blinded by lust, addressed Galava, that foremost of rishis, saying, I have only 200 steeds about me of the kind wanted by thee, although of other kinds all worthy of sacrifice, I have many thousand moving about, and my dominions, O Galava, I desire to beget only one son upon this damsel. Kindly grant this request of mine. Hearing these words of the king, that damsel said unto Galava, a reciter of Brahma granted me a boon that I would after each delivery be a maiden again. Give me away, therefore, to this king, accepting his excellent steeds. In this way, full 800 steeds may be obtained by thee from 4 kings in succession, and I also may have 4 sons. Collect thou the wealth intended for thy preceptor in this way. Even this is what I think. It depends, however, oil thee, O Brahmana, as to how thou shouldst act. Thus addressed by that maiden, the Muni Galava said these words unto King Haryasva, O Haryasva, O best of men, accept this damsel for a 4th part of the dower that I have settled, and beget only one son upon her. Taking then that maiden and worshipping Galava, the king in due time and place had by her a son of the kind wished for. And the son so born came to be called by the name of Vasumanas. Richer than all the wealthy kings of the earth, and resembling one of the Vasus themselves, he became a king and giver of great wealth. After some time, intelligent Galava came back and approaching the delighted Haryasva, said unto him, Thou hast, O king, obtained a son. Indeed, this child is like the sun himself in splendor. The time hath come, O foremost of men, for me to go to some other king for alms. Hearing these words, Haryasva, who was even truthful in speech and steady in acts of manliness, and remembering that the balance of 600 steeds could not be made up by him, gave Madhavi back to Galava. And Madhavi also, abandoning that blazing, kingly prosperity, and once more becoming a maiden, followed the footsteps of Galava. And Galava too, saying, Let the steeds remain with thee, then went, accompanied by the maiden, to King Davodasa. Footnotes 228:1 The limbs that should be prominent or elevated in order to constitute an indication of beauty or auspiciousness are variously mentioned. The general opinion seems to be that these 6 only, viz., the back of each palm, the 2 dorsa, and the 2 bosoms should be elevated. Another opinion would seem to indicate that the 2 bosoms, the 2 hips, and the 2 eyes should be so. The 7 that should be delicate or slender are unanimously mentioned as the skin, the hair, the teeth, the fingers of the hands, the fingers of the feet, the waist, and the neck. The 3 that should be deep are the navel, the voice, and the understanding. The 5 that should be red are the 2 palms, the 2 outer corners of the eyes, the tongue, the nether and the upper lips, and the palate. These 5 also are variously given. Mahabharata, Book 5, Section 117. Narada said, Galava then, addressing Madhavi, said, The ruler of the Kasis is an illustrious king known by the name of Davodasa. He is the son of Bhimasena, is endued with great prowess, and is a mighty sovereign. O blessed maiden, we are now going to him. Follow me slowly and grieve not. That ruler of men is virtuous and devoted to truth and hath his passions under control. Narada continued, When the Muni came before that king, he was received with due hospitality by the latter. Galava, then, began to urge the monarch for begetting a child. Thus addressed, Davodasa said, I heard of all this before. Thou needest not speak much. O Brahmana, I may tell thee, O best of Brahmanas, that as soon as I heard of this matter, my heart was set upon it. This also is a mark of great honor to me, that passing over all other kings thou hast come to me. Without doubt, thy object will be gained. In the matter of the steeds, O Galava, my wealth is like that of King Vyasa. I shall, therefore, beget only one royal son upon this maiden. Hearing these words, that best of Brahmanas gave that damsel unto the king, and the king, thereupon, duly wedded her. And the royal sage then sported with her, as Surya with Prabhavati, Agni with Svaha, Vasva with Sachi, Chandra with Rohini, Yama with Ramala, Varuna with Gauri, Kuvara with Riddhi, Narayana with Lakshmi, Sagara with Janavi, Rudra with Rudrani, the grandsire with Sarasvati, Vasishta's son Saktriya with Adrasyanti, Vasishta with Arundhati, called also Akshamala, Chayavana with Sukanya, Pulasadya with Sandhya, Agastya with the princess of Vidarbha Lopamudra, Sadyavan with Savitri, Brigu with Puloma, Kasayapa with Aditi, Richika's son Jamadagni with Renuka, Kusika's son Viswamitra with Himavati, Vrihaspati with Tara, Sukra with Sataprava, Bhumapati with Bhumi, Pauravas with Urvasi, Richika with Sadyavti, Manu with Sarasvati, Dushyanta with Sakuntala, the eternal Dharma with 30, Nala with Damayanti, Narada with Sadyavti, Jarakaru with Jarakaru, Pulasadya with Pratikya, Arneus with Menaka, Tumvaru with Rumba, Vasuki with Satasarsha, Dhananjaya with Kamari, Rama with the princess of Videha Sita, or Janardana with Rukmini. And unto King Davodesa, that sporting with and taking delight in her, Madhavi bore a son named Pradadana. And after she had borne him a son, the holy Galava came to Davodesa at the appointed time, and said unto him, Let the maiden come with me, and let the steeds also thou art to give me remain with thee, for I desire to go elsewhere, O ruler of earth, for dower. Thus addressed, the virtuous King Davodesa, who was devoted to truth, thereupon gave back the maiden to Galava at the appointed time. Mahabharata, Book 5, Section 118. Narada said, The illustrious Madhavi, faithful to her promise, abandoning that prosperity and once more becoming a maiden, followed the footsteps of the Brahmana Galava. And Galava, whose heart was set upon the accomplishment of his own business, reflecting upon what he should do next, then went to the city of the Bhojas for waiting upon King Usanara. And arrived before that king of unbaffled prowess, Galava addressed him, saying, This maiden will bear thee 2 royal sons. And, O king, begetting upon her 2 sons equal unto the sun and the moon, thou mayst attain all thy objects both here and hereafter. As her dower, however, O thou that art conversant with every duty, thou shalt have to give me 400 steeds of lunar splendor, each having ear black of hue. This effort of mine for obtaining the steeds is only on account of my preceptor, otherwise I myself have nothing to do with them. If thou art able to accept my terms, do as I bid thee without any hesitation. O royal sage, thou art now childless. Beget, O king, a couple of children. With offspring so begot as a raft, save they Pitris and thyself also. O royal sage, he that hath fruit in the shape of offspring to enjoy, never falleth from heaven. Nor hath such a person to go to that frightful hell whither the childless are doomed to go. Hearing these and other words of Galava, King Usanara replied unto him, saying, I have heard what thou, O Galava, hast said. My heart also is inclined to do thy bidding. The supreme ordainer, however, is all-powerful. I have only 200 steeds of the kind indicated by thee, O best of Brahmanas. Of other kinds, I have many thousands moving about in my dominions. I will, O Galava, beget only 1 son upon her, by treading the path that hath been told by others, such as Vyasa and Davodesa. I will act after their manner in the matter of the dower. O best of Brahmanas, my wealth exists for only my subjects residing in the city and the country, and not for my own comforts and enjoyment. That king, O virtuous one, who giveth away for his own pleasure the wealth that belongeth to others, can never earn virtue or fame. Let this maiden, endued with the radiance of a celestial girl, be presented to me. I will accept her for begetting only one child. Hearing these and many other words that Yusanara spoke, that best of Brahmanas, Galava, then applauded the monarch and gave him the maiden. And making Yusanara accept that damsel, Galava went into the woods. And like a righteous man enjoying the prosperity won by his deeds, Yusanara began to sport with and enjoy that damsel in valleys and dales of mountains, by fountains and falls of rivers, and mansions, delightful chambers, variegated gardens, forests and woods, agreeable places, and terraces of houses. And, in due time, was born unto him a son of the splendor of the morning sun, who afterwards became an excellent king, celebrated by the name Sivi. And after the birth of that son, the Brahmana Galava came to Yusanara, and taking back from him the maiden went, O king, to see the son of Vinata. Mahabharata, Book 5, Section 119. Narada said, seeing Galava, Vinata's son smilingly addressed him, saying, By good luck it is, O Brahmana, that I behold thee successful. Galava, however, hearing the words spoken by Garuda, informed him that a fourth part of the task was still unfinished. Garuda then, that foremost of all speakers, said unto Galava, Do not make any endeavor to obtain the remaining 200, for it will not succeed. In days of yore, Richika sought at Kanyaki Jagadi's daughter, Satyavati, for making her his wife. Thereupon Gadi, O Galava, addressing the Rishi, said, O Holy One, let 1,000 steeds of lunar brightness, each with one ear black of hue, be presented to me. Thus requested, Richika said, So be it. And then wending his way to the great mart of steeds, Aswatirtha, and Varana's abode, the Rishi obtained what he sought and gave them unto the king. Performing a sacrifice then of the name of Pundarika, that monarch gave away those steeds, as dakshina, unto the Brahmanas. The 3 kings to whom thou hadst applied had purchased those horses from the Brahmanas, each to the number of 200. The remaining 400, O best of Brahmanas, while being transported over the river, were taken by the Vatasta. Therefore, O Galava, thou canst never have that which is not to be had. Do thou then, O virtuous one, present unto Viswamitra this maiden as an equivalent for 200 steeds, along with the 600 thou hast already obtained. Thou wilt then, O best of Brahmanas, be freed from thy grief and crowned with success. Galava then, saying, So be it, and taking with him both the maiden and the steeds, went with Garuda in his company unto Viswamitra. And arrived in his presence, Galava said, Here are 600 steeds of the kind demanded by thee. And this maiden is offered as an equivalent for the remaining 200. Let all these be accepted by thee. Upon this maiden have been begotten 3 virtuous sons by 3 royal sages. Let a 4th, foremost of all, be begotten upon her by thee. And thus let the number of steeds, 800, be regarded by thee as full, and let me also, being freed from thy debt, go and practice ascetic penances as I list. Viswamitra then, beholding Galava in the company of the bird, and that highly beautiful maiden, said, Why, O Galava, didst thou not give me this maiden before? For sons then, sanctifiers of my race, would all have been mine alone. I accept this maiden of thine for begetting upon her one son. As regards the steeds, let them graze in my asylum. Saying this, Viswamitra of great effulgence began to pass his time happily with her, and Madhavi bore him a son of the name of Ashtaka. And as soon as that son was born, the great Muni Viswamitra addressed him to both virtue and profit, and gave him those 600 steeds. Ashtaka then went to a city, bright as the city of Soma. And Kusika's son Viswamitra, also having made over the damsel to his disciple, himself went into the woods. And Galava also, with his friend Suparna, having in this way succeeded in giving his preceptor the fee he had demanded, with a cheerful heart addressed that maiden and said, "Thou hast borne a son who is exceedingly charitable, and another who is exceedingly brave, and a third who is devoted to truth and righteousness, and yet another who is a performer of great sacrifices. O beautiful maiden, thou hast, by these sons, saved not only thy father, but 4 kings and myself also. Go now, O thou of slender waist." Saying this, Galava dismissed Garuda, the devourer of snakes, and returning the maiden unto her father himself, went into the woods. Footnotes 231:1. The latter half of this sloka is variously read. The correct reading, I apprehend, is Nayamanani Santar Hritnyasan Vidasteya, i.e., while transported across, were taken down by the river Vitasta, the latter being one of the 5 rivers of the Punjab. Mahabharata, Book 5, Section 120. Narada said, King Yayati then, desirous again of disposing of his daughter in Swayamvara, went to a hermitage on the confluence of the Ganga and the Yamuna, taking Madhavi with him on a chariot, her person decked with garlands of flowers. And both Puru and Yadu followed their sister to that sacred asylum. And in that spot was assembled a vast concourse of Nagas and Yakshas and human beings, of Gandharvas and animals and birds, and of dwellers of mountains and trees and forests, and of many inhabitants of that particular province. And the woods all around that asylum were filled with numerous rishis resembling Brahman himself. And while the selection had commenced of husband, that maiden of the fairest complexion, passing over all the bridegrooms there assembled, selected the forest as her lord. Descending from her chariot and saluting all her friends, the daughter of Yayati went into the forest, which is always sacred, and devoted herself to ascetic austerities. Reducing her body by means of fasts of various kinds and religious rites and rigid vows, she adopted the deer's mode of life, and subsisting upon soft and green grass blades, resembling the sprouts of lapis lazuli, and which were both bitter and sweet to the taste, and drinking the sweet, pure, cool, crystal, and very superior water of sacred mountain streams, and wandering with the deer in forests destitute of lions and tigers, in deserts free from forest conflagration, and in thick woods, that maiden, leading the life of a wild doe, earned great religious merit by the practice of Brahmacharya austerities. Meanwhile, King Yayati, following the practice of kings before him, submitted to the influence of time, after having lived for many thousands of years. The progeny of 2 of his sons, those foremost of men Puru and Yadu, multiplied greatly, and in consequence thereof, Nahusha's son won great respect both in this and the other world. O monarch, dwelling in heaven, King Yayati, resembling a great rishi, became an object of much regard, and enjoyed the highest fruits of those regions. And after many thousands of years had passed away in great happiness, on one occasion while seated among the illustrious royal sages and great rishis, King Yayati, from folly, ignorance, and pride, mentally disregarded all the gods and rishis, and all human beings. Thereat the divine Sakra, the slayer of Vala, at once read his heart. And those royal sages also addressed him, saying, Fie, fie. And beholding the son of Nahusha, the questions were asked, Who is this person? What king's son is he? Why is he in heaven? By what acts hath he won success? Where did he earn ascetic merit? For what hath he been known here? Who knoweth him? The dwellers of heaven, thus speaking of that monarch, asked one another these questions about Yayati, that ruler of men. And hundreds of heaven's charioteers, and hundreds of those that kept heaven's gates, and of those what were in charge of heaven's seats, thus questioned, all answered, We do not know him. And the minds of all were temporarily clouded, so that none recognized the king, and thereupon the monarch was soon divested of his splendor. Present you by HinduMonastery.com.